Hey everybody, it is Tuesday, December 31st, 2013, and this is a special episode of Super GameTalk Turbo HD Remix. As always, I am joined by the omnipotent and merciful Vertigo Tea Party.
Hello.
And we're here for a special episode just to round up some of our favorite games this year and talk through the games we enjoyed the most, and also the games we enjoyed the least. Of course, it wouldn't be complete without talking about those. So, we started out and we were discussing how we wanted to do this. And, the traditional way is to come up with a top 10 or a top 5, but we're looking at the actual games we want to get on there. And, it felt kind of like if we did a top 10, there were games we were including just because we had to fill 10, but we didn't necessarily think they were excellent games. So we decided to just tell you our favorite games. It's a little easier and more natural that way.
Yeah, I've never liked the idea that you have to have a game of the year. You have to have a top 10. I mean, a top 10 list is kind of fun to read just in passing, but when you're a totally serious podcast like this,
yeah, I mean, this is
it feels
integrity
forced,
here.
There is so much integrity.
I mean, so much rides on this episode. I know people have been waiting to see what our favorite games are this year.
Yeah, Gabe was emailing me asking me when this was going to come out. And I was like, man, just relax. It's fine. It's coming out when Half-Life 3 is coming out.
Yeah, it's, Cliffy B's been waiting on this. There's all sorts of Ken Levine. There's a lot of people out there that are interested to hear what we have to say.
But yeah, so in a nutshell, we don't like to do, or at least I specifically don't like to do a specific number of X. It's just like, if there was 2 games that I thought were amazing this year, then the list is 2. If there was 27 games that I thought were amazing,
yeah, and spoiler alert, Vertigo Tea Party did not find any games to be excellent this year.
No, they were all garbage.
They were all terrible.
One.
So it's going to be a very short episode.
Yeah. I'm just going to bash everyone that he brings up, so prepare your bodies.
So do you want to just go back and forth and volley favorite games and talk through them individually? Or
let's have one of us just do the list.
Okay.
You want to start?
I'll start us off.
That's garbage.
Yeah.
You're an idiot for liking that.
One of the first games I really enjoyed this year was Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. And I played this when it first came out and was eager to discuss this with someone, but none of my friends played it when it came out. But I understand you've played it now.
I have. And just as a fair warning, we'll try to avoid spoilers. Yeah. But when you're trying to talk about the game in depth, I mean, we're going to tiptoe around them.
Yeah.
So if there's like any particular game we bring up that you haven't played yet, again, we'll try to avoid it, but be warned that there might be some minor spoilers.
Yeah, there's going to be some spoilers. It's really hard to discuss your favorite games without being a little spoilery. We're not going to just go ahead and disclose the final act or anything like that.
Snape kills Dumbledore.
Reason. Yes, exactly. So you find out at the end that it's all somebody's dream. But I think one thing about Brothers, and go ahead and fast forward if you still haven't played Brothers, because this one's going to be, I think, a little spoilery. The thing I loved about Brothers was the coupling of the control interface to the narrative. So you controlled these 2 sticks that controlled these 2 brothers. You did the puzzles, and the puzzles and the art were good, but I don't think they're what made that game. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say that they're exceptional. They would not stand on their own. I think what made that game was the interesting way that the controls tied to the narrative. And so that the final moment, when something happens, and you realize that you have to control the game differently. That's a big payoff, and I feel like that was unique. And that traditionally the mechanics of control for characters have not been something that have tied to storytelling. And I thought Brothers did an excellent job of connecting those 2 things, in that you felt these connection between your left thumb and your right thumb to these brothers. And through the events that take place in the story, it makes a more interesting impact. Because there's always been, the thing I love about games is there's been the aha moments where you figure out a gameplay thing, like a puzzle or something. You're like, oh, I get it. It's kind of like that eureka feeling. I understand now. I've got the answer. That's one thing I like about games, the interactive side. But there's also like when there's a story twist or it makes you feel something. That's something else that games can do. And I thought Brothers was awesome at experiencing those two moments at the same time. Like, I experienced the puzzle that I had to solve and the payoff of the narrative at the same time.
Yeah, I did like Brothers. I did enjoy it. And I even think it's $15 normally.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because I would say that's a good price for most folks. The art was really good. I like some of the interactivity you could do in the beginning town that wasn't really essential to the game. And some of that was pretty cool. The puzzles were very, very easy for the most part. I think the longest I got stuck on any puzzle was like maybe a minute. But for some reason the puzzle still felt satisfying to do. I think because of the way they played out. Yeah. It wasn't like move these blocks until all the green blocks are on one side and the red blocks are another. It was the way you watched the puzzle play out.
Yeah,
I think that was really cool. For example, again, this isn't really spoilery, but there's a part where you kind of swing off of each other, like where you've got ropes tied to each other. Like that was just fun to watch and to kind of and to play with and to do. So the puzzles definitely were not anything like Portal level, where you get that feeling of, oh, I've solved this difficult puzzle. Like I feel smart now, or stupid, depending how long you hit that critical moment where it's like, okay, now I'm being stupid for not solving this sooner. But it still felt good just to watch it play out.
Yeah, and I think what's cool is there were these little like gameplay beats where solve this puzzle, and as you're solving the puzzle, you weren't just performing that task that was a satisfying gameplay experience. You were reinforcing the fact that this brother needs the other brother to complete these things.
Yeah,
and so there is a story being told as you're solving puzzles, and that these brothers are helping each other out. And I thought another really good thing about it is that there's not a word of dialogue spoken the entire game. No character says a single word. And yet you get a sense of who these characters are. You have an older brother that's a little more, flashy, a little more independent. You get a younger brother who's a little less sure of himself, a little more dependent, but a little smarter, maybe. Like, you get a sense of these characters without a single word of communication. Like, no spoken word, no written word. It's just how they emote and what they do. And I think that is really excellent. I thought that it did a good job with that.
I think it did a pretty good job, but I think it was not hard to get across. I mean, it's kind of the typical big brother, little brother thing. The older brother is the stronger one. He's the
I mean, it was based on archetypes of
right. So it's not that they had a whole like in-depth personality they need to get across. So I don't think the Simoleon speech, or not Simoleon, that's the money they used in Sims. The Simese, or whatever you want to call it.
Simlish,
helped at all. It didn't hurt, but it didn't help.
Yeah.
Like, I think if they would have spoke English or whatever language that you're used to hearing, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, it wouldn't have taken away from the game at all. Because like I said, the characters weren't that deep. But I think that's probably partly why a lot of people like them, is because they can relate to them a little bit better on a
I think it's
level.
I think if it's on that level where it's a little easier to relate, because you can kind of fill in the gaps of what you think that character is, and more often than not, you fill in the gaps with things that appeal to you. Like, I see something in that character. I have a brother that's 3 years older than me, and so I saw things in the little brother. Like, that's who I identified with. And I think I think I do like the Simlish though. Like I feel like it adds to the fairy tale feel of it. Like this is in a distant land where they don't necessarily speak our language. This is kind of just like it's felt like a storybook that way, and I thought it was well done. So
yeah, and the music was good for the most part, except for the one with a woman singing that they played over and over and over again. Like it was one by the default volume. It was really loud. Like I had to lower it. I think I lowered it to about 50%, and it was still pretty noticeable.
I don't remember that being a problem. You played that on the PC?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it was really loud by default.
I played it on the Xbox, but it's been a while. I played it. I think it came out in summer sometime.
Did it?
I think it was the Summer of Arcade, like one of those titles.
But so it wasn't bad. It just got a little distracting sometimes, even with, especially because it was like the same tune over and over again, or very very similar. So, but that's a very small, kind of knock, if you will.
I don't think there's any game we're going to talk about today where we don't have some.
Oh well, yeah,
that's
why there's no 10s.
Yep.
One thing I will mention though is how grossly irresponsible is that medic guy in the beginning. Like how, like he was like, yeah, this is medicine. You're gonna have to, crawl into this horrifically dangerous land to get it, and I don't happen to have any, even though it's, curative.
I know.
But yeah, you too. You think 12-year-old and 8-year-old, you go get that.
Some trader or smuggler or somebody would make an enterprise out of transporting these healing, things to this other place, and that they had the correct. I mean, maybe they were on Obamacare and that didn't provide it. It's just, so that explains why they were saying thanks Obama the whole time. But
maybe this was just like a big allegory to crossing the border into Canada to get cheap prescription medication.
This is a statement for socialized healthcare.
Oh man, yeah. See,
subversive.
Somebody let Fox News know about this.
Yeah,
they'll be outraged.
Where's the outrage?
There should be. I'm going to be outraged.
I think those are my favorite words. Where's the outrage?
Look on Twitter, you'll find plenty, and Tumblr.
So that's Brothers. That was I originally put kind of just like I came up with 5. Okay, my favorite ones. The next one is Bioshock Infinite. This came out in March, and I feel like a lot came out in March. It was Bioshock Infinite, Tomb Raider, the StarCraft expansion came out.
I think God of War Ascension came out
God of War Ascension, MLB The Show,
Did it?
Yeah, it always comes out in March. But so Bioshock Infinite was one of those games that we have been waiting for a long time to play. I mean, it was announced and delayed multiple times. Like it was announced 2 years ago, or 2 years before it came out.
Was it?
Is that about right? I feel like in 2011 it might have been announced, and then delayed multiple times. I feel like at least 3 delays. So then it finally came out, and I loved it. I mean, I think one of the biggest things we agree on is the gameplay flaws. Where I would not. I think we disagree on the severity. I would definitely agree that they're there.
Yeah.
I don't think they gave me a frustrated experience at all. I think they gave me kind of a annoyance to them. Like they were a little annoying, but not to the point of frustration. I think that might be a difference because I played on normal and you played on hard.
Yeah, I think so, because the gameplay specifically that I had a problem with was the 2-gun limit. Well, the 2-gun limit combined with a lot of the weapons were either like almost duplicates of each other, or they were just bad. Like there were some weapons that were just garbage. Like the one that shot the little explosive balls. I remember like thinking, God, this weapon can't be that bad. I'm gonna give it an honest shot. And I fought one of those Washington creatures, and I shot it like in the back, in the gear, like 6 times, and it still like was there's no problem. I'm like, oh come on, like this is got the impact of a major weapon, and its detriment is you have to reload it often, and it doesn't have a very far shot. And it's like it is not killing anything. It's like this is just trash. So it seemed like half the weapons were just near useless,
mm-hmm.
and the 2-weapon limit was just incredibly limiting.
Yeah,
I hate weapon limits. Period. 4, I'll tolerate a 4-weapon limit, but 2, like, I don't know what the hell they were thinking.
Well, I think what they were thinking was this will force people to try out all the different weapons we've created.
And I did try them, and half of them were shit. So that's kind of a problem.
But that's the problem. If you're going to do that, it's very brazen that you're going to force your players to try out the different weapons.
Yeah.
So if you're going to do that, you got to make sure those weapons are good.
You know how good game designers do that? By spreading
the
ammo out.
Yeah.
Remember back in the day, and not to get a side rant, but the old FPS games,
Doom, the original Doom,
where the ammo was at random. Yeah. So even if you had a favorite weapon, you pretty much couldn't use it the whole time because you'd run out of ammo. So, because I played Half-Life 2 again about 6 months ago, and was reminded how damn good that is, because I have my favorite weapons that I would use most of the time, but I would still need to mix it up with other weapons because I would just run out of ammo.
The original Wolfenstein 3D.
Yeah.
I remember reverting to a knife by necessity several times.
Yeah, and you're rewarded for exploring because you get more ammo that you desperately needed, especially if you wanted it for your favorite gun. And there was a strategy in that, okay, well, if I'm using my favorite gun and I notice, oh, my pistol ammo's full, I need to keep in mind, maybe on some weaker enemies, switch to the pistol and use that ammo up on the weaker enemies and then switch back to whatever my favorite gun is. So I really hated that limit, and it just felt incredibly forced. And like you said, if their objective was to force you to use more than one weapon, one, there's other ways to do that.
Yeah.
2, don't tell me how to play your damn game. And
that's what game design is, though. I mean, in a sense, it's just good game design. You don't realize it.
Right. To an extent, you are still limited by what they're giving you. But to say, we're giving you these guns, by the way, we're forcing you to use all of them because we're just...
Good game design will force you to do things in a certain way implicitly, but bad game design explicitly, you can tell, like, oh, you're forcing me to do this, so this will happen. And I think that is an easy distinction between good and bad games.
I think a comparison would be like if you were playing an RPG and you wanted to use magic. There were some parts where it was like, well, no, you just have to melee. You have to use swords. Like that would be an equivalent, I think, to this. Is if you're giving me options like be a magic user, don't say, well, sometimes you just have to use a sword.
That's one thing I didn't like about Oblivion, is that a lot of the main storyline quests, you could create this stealth character. You're really good at stealth. And then
the arena shows up.
Yeah, you are immediately put in these situations where you're expected to be a barbarian melee character, and it's...
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking there.
Yeah.
Because, there's obviously just a crappy scenario. I cheesed the hell out of that because I had a ranged archery character.
Yeah, it's like when you experience bad game design, then chances are it's like, fine, I'll just find a way to cheese your design. And
that does happen. Well, and 2, the other thing with Bioshock Infinite, the thing I loved was the skylines. I love the skylines.
Yeah, that was fun.
I loved pulling in, like using Elizabeth to pull in things like it had the flying copters or the things you could hide behind or the health packs. I loved, like, during the fight, it's really hectic and you're like, oh, I want to bring in this gun on balloons, and you bring it in to help you and to give you cover, and then you get a few shots off. Oh, they've killed that, so I'm gonna bring up the thing to hide behind with the health in it, and I'll do that, and I'll go heal up, and I'll kill a few more enemies, and like, okay, now I'll bring the balloon guy back. I love that whole dynamic. I think it was really well. I wish there would have been more of them, though. I feel like there wasn't enough of them.
Yeah.
I also feel the same about the skylines. I really liked fighting on the skylines, and I don't feel like there was enough skyline fighting.
I think it added a lot of variety to the combat like you could shoot people from the skyline. You could jump off the skyline and take people out that way, and then you could spawn things in as you like kind of zoomed around the level.
Yeah.
And it gave you a sense of like it was such a design difference than the original Bioshock, because the original Bioshock was all about this underwater confined area where you've got to make the most of your spaces, whereas Bioshock Infinite was in many ways an opposite in that the sky's the limit. You're up and you experience this whole world, and you can use that whole arena to combat, and it was pretty fun. I liked it. The other I guess thing I wanted to note that was really good with Bioshock Infinite is I love the art design.
Yeah.
The way it used a color palette to kind of convey that pre-industrial I don't know, that kind of morbid patriotism that it was just kind of is disturbing. Did you see that news story about how
the
Tea Party not inadvertently used one of their images, not realizing it was satire?
Of the Tea Party.
Yeah. So I think that is one of the biggest compliments of satire, when it is mistaken for original intent. But I really also love how stylized the characters were. Like they obviously didn't go for a realistic approach to the characters. They were stylized, but I think that really helped them emote a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because it's really tricky to make an ultra realistic face that kind of elicits emotion the way you can with a stylized face.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think in a weird way, like Portal 2 does a really amazing job with this too, or any Valve game really. I mean, you look at Half-Life 2 and the way the character animations or the facial animations actually inform how that character feels without dialogue or anything.
That game still is probably the best I've ever seen as far as that goes.
Isn't that crazy? Like,
we haven't seemed to come anywhere from then.
So I think that is a testament that it's not about technical limitations. Like anybody that goes out and says like, well, now we can finally create art where the characters, it's like, no, you're not being held by technology.
Yeah.
You're being held back by how good your artists are. And I think that's ultimately why a lot of games are held back from being able to tell the stories that a good movie can tell, is that an actor can portray so many different emotions and intentions without dialogue, but very few games can express that unless it's explicitly stated. And I thought Bioshock Infinite did an awesome job with its character models, and kind of just, I thought Elizabeth was a really cool character. Like, you ended up, it wasn't so much like you were trying to protect her. She felt more like a teammate. Yeah. And I thought the AI inclusions of her, like, throwing you ammo and throwing you things and doing that stuff it made her feel like a different character. And I thought that added to the story, because if she wasn't doing those things, then you would just feel like, oh, this is this helpless person, whatever. But she was kind of like in the trenches with you during the game, and it really made you feel like her character was more capable and more independent. And so when you got to the final payoff, which I thoroughly enjoyed, like, I think a lot of people have gone back on it and been like, no, it didn't make sense, it was stupid, it was confusing, or whatever. And I'm not saying it was flawless. It was definitely, it had some flaws to it, but anytime you have a multi-dimensional or time traveling story, like, stuff is not going to add up. Like,
I know it's the like total hipster thing to do now, to go back and bash on Bioshock Infinite. And one site in particular, I think it was, well, I don't want to say which one because I might be wrong, but one site in particular actually went back and re-reviewed the game and gave it like a 4 or something. I'm like,
It's
are
so
you kidding
dumb.
me? It's like, I know you're doing this for just the clicks.
See, that's the slippery slope of people being able to update the reviews. Like, nothing changed about that game.
Yeah, that's even worse. Nothing changed. So, like, how are you going to go back now and give it... Because I think they originally gave it like an 8 or 8.5. And it's like, how are you going to give it half the score you gave it? Just because, well, we need some ad revenue.
Yeah.
So we're going to go back and re-review this game. It's like, people now, oh, the story was crap. I'm like, please.
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to sit there and tell me that story's great. And then turn around and tell me something like,
yeah, and
Gone
give
Home
COD
has a good
Ghosts
story.
8 or 9.
Yeah, it's like, come on. It's like, once because I remember when I finished the game, like the final reveal, I was like, what? I was like, how does that make sense? So I went to Reddit, of course, and I read somebody had posted like an overview of what he thought, and I getting a few other people had been talking and taking all the evidence and putting it together. And after I read it, I was like, whoa. I was like, that's pretty damn cool how all of this came together. So I don't know. I mean, I could see not liking the story, but I'm sorry, you're a hipster if you think it's crap. Like, if you say it's crap, you're just being a hipster.
Well, that's the thing. I'm noticing. I really like. This is one of my biggest pet peeves: is people that shit on things just because they think that makes them like smarter or cooler.
Right? Yes.
Like,
yes.
See, I don't like this thing that majority of people like. Therefore, I'm a better person. Like,
right. And I like this thing that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah.
And is very pretentious, so that makes me smart.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's funny is that lines up with pretty much the people that I see crafting on it are the people who try to carry themselves as being like very, very intelligent and very, very down with the games, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the philosophy behind the games, and they're always posting about that shit. So it's not surprising to see that kind of person say, oh, yeah, the story in Bioshock Infinite was shit. Yeah. Again, I could see not liking it. If you think it was overly convoluted, you thought it was, whatever. But like, if you're saying it's shit, then I don't tell you.
There's so many people are just uncomfortable having middle ground opinions about things. It's like you can think one aspect is excellent and one aspect is terrible, and just have a middle, an okay opinion about something. But so many people have to put things in either like it's terrible or it's the best. Like, it's like, why can't it just be a good thing? I mean, I think I know we keep bringing it up, but Gone Home is a good example of something that I think is a good thing, but flawed and not exceptional.
Yeah.
Like, and I think in the effort to make our medium smarter or more progressive, a lot of people have lauded that game when maybe it's good though. Like, I'm not gonna turn around and be like Gone Home's terrible. Like, that's what I've seen a lot of people also do, and that it's a divisive game. I think it's the most divisive game this year. There are too many people that think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and too many people that think it's terrible.
Yeah,
and it's not either.
The thing that hurts with Gone Home, and yes, I finally did play it, was the defenders are actually hurting the game at this point, because
that's the way it works for any
But Gone Home seems to be the worst, because with Gone Home you don't just have these random internet people doing it. You have like bigger name people who are a little over the top protecting it. Like, you can't say, bad things about Gone Home. $20, that's fine. You can't judge that it's only a $2 game for $20. That blah blah blah. So I've heard like those asinine commentary trying to defend Gone Home again from people who should know better. And it's
I think a lot of the defense comes from people that want games to be smarter and more socially progressive and more culturally relevant. And so a lot of people are just like justifying their, pushing it because they think it's good for games to do it that way. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're afraid that, maybe other developers will see the negativity that Gone Home gets for being what it is.
Yeah.
And well, I'm not going to make a game like that because people don't like it. So I think now they're overcompensating. It's like, no, it's great. If you don't like it, then you're just stupid.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's again, I thought it was good. Maybe a game that's up in the air, but it was good.
It is not on either of our games of the year lists.
Right. And again, I thought it was good. I would definitely not suggest it for $20. I think that's a ripoff. 15 absolute tops, but
yeah. I think, but you'll be able to find it for $10 so many times.
Over the
next 6 months, it's going to be on sale a lot. But I think the last thing I wanted to touch on for Bioshock Infinite was how disturbing some of the moments were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
in regards to racial perception or Native American genocide.
Yeah,
like there was some moments where just like very dark.
Yeah,
and when you contrast that with the art style, this kind of like bright, lush universe.
Yeah,
I thought that was very effective, and I thought it was really interesting. And I know it's weird to say like I really enjoyed those dark aspects of it, but I thought that was well done.
Yeah, and some people complained about that. It's like, look, if you want, like, it made me feel uncomfortable.
It was supposed to.
Yeah, it's supposed to. You're not supposed to be like, I'm just going to hit them with this baseball, no problem. Like, that, that's the point. Yeah. Like, it's supposed to bring that up to the surface. And
now, if it glorified those things or was saying that those were good things, then you'd have a basis of criticism. But
right.
If it was supposed to make you feel bad about it, then it was just being art.
Right? Yeah, and it was a bit heavy-handed for sure.
Yeah,
but
I think it's hard to talk about those things in a subtle way. Like, I mean, like those are egregious things, and heavy-handed or not, it's like that's how things exist. I would say it was heavy-handed if it was just to the point of somebody acting unrealistically.
Yeah.
But people really are that nuts about those topics.
Right.
And so I thought it was presented in an appropriately measured way, even though it was pretty over the top and in the fact that it was very disturbing. But
yeah.
I think, I don't know, do you have any other things about Bioshock Infinite?
No.
All right. The next game on the list also came out in March. Tomb Raider.
Oh, yes.
The reboot that had been also teased and discussed for at least a year leading up to its release.
Yeah.
I think both of those games were originally planned on fall 2012, right?
I don't remember.
Yeah, it was. I think they were both delayed. But Tomb Raider came out, and I think the interesting and biggest departure from that series, like Tomb Raider was getting stale, objectively. It was just like Tomb Raider after Tomb Raider after Tomb Raider, and they were not doing anything dynamic with the character. It was basically just turning into like, isn't raiding tombs fun? Like, do it again, And so they decided to, as a lot of art decides to do, let's reboot it and tell the origin story. So origin stories can get a little tired after a while. It's like, how many times do we need to see Spider-Man rebooted? But I only think this is the third time that
I think it's the first time it's been rebooted.
Well, I mean,
there's been HD remakes of older games.
Yeah, but there have been Tomb Raider video games that have had flashbacks and had told her origin story as a teenager a couple times.
Yeah. But I think this is an actual reboot. Like, all right, forget all that. We're starting all over. This
is actually like saying, forget all that stuff you saw. This is how it really happened. Like, it's rewriting that, because some of the details did change. But I think the first thing that it did well, but not excellently, was that, you start out as a different Lara Croft, and that she's afraid, and she is weak, and she's vulnerable. And I think maybe that metamorphosis happens a little too fast.
Yeah.
Because, another spoiler alert, but you're presented in a case where it's pretty much some other guy or you. Like she's about to get raped.
Yeah.
And this is, I think it was a very like dark emotional way to push that character into becoming the Lara Croft that you'd play for the rest of the game. And it, you know, it first starts out that she's hiding and she's timid and she doesn't know what to do and she's, you know, scared. I mean, justifiably. If
right.
any of
yeah,
us were in that
like,
situation, I would lose my mind. But,
yeah, because I think she's like 22, 23, something like that.
Yeah, she's pretty young. And then, you know, the scene happens and she's able to wriggle her way out of it and kill the guy.
Yeah.
But then, from that point forward in the game, you know, she's gouging people in the eye and doing like performing these gruesome deaths. Like, and it's kind of like the time for, because as soon as she shoots the guy, she cries. Like it's a big emotional like thing for her. It's not like she commits murder and like, all right, well, let's move on. You know, like there's a big moment where it means a lot to that character, but then immediately you'll have an encounter with a dozen guys and you'll shoot them in the face and run off.
Yeah,
that
is a very common complaint.
Yeah,
and I agree with it. That they built that up so much, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like 30 seconds later you're blowing guys away left and right. So it's like you really should have probably did a better job on the pacing of that, because it's like, oh, I'm really depressed about this, but I kind of like it. I kind of Now that would have been interesting. Like,
if they made it so dark that like she was becoming like sadistic about it.
Yeah. That would be interesting. But I do agree that was not. They needed to fix the pacing on that,
because there's a lot of off, like, kind of tonally dissonant, gruesome moments where you'll be like in this, like, you'll go down the river or whatever, and then all of a sudden you'll get impaled by something through your skull.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that. Like, it's just like this most random, like, super gruesome. It's like the game just like, hey, you like gore? Like, it's like, whoa, this is a different game. Like, some of those moments felt a little crazy, but at the same time they did make you feel like a little more like this. Every part of this world is hostile.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like that. I actually like that, because it made me even more.
Because you like gruesome deaths, right?
Well, yeah. But I was like even more careful to not die, or like more nervous about dying, because I didn't want to see her like get impaled in the face with a tree branch. So like I was even more cautious about that, and like freaking out about it, because I got to that part and I think I actually managed to not die, but I knew what was there, so I was like super like cautious and oh god, don't run into it, like this will be awful. So yeah, I think it was good they did that, because like you say, this is not like just, you know, your Disneyland outing. Like, this is nature, and this is the brutal way that people might die out there. Yeah, so.
And your enemies aren't just the other characters that have guns. Your enemy is the hostile environment as well.
Yeah.
Like, and I think we're just going to go ahead and get all the negatives out of the way first, because we haven't discussed any of the positives yet. But the other negative was there's a lot of quick time events.
Way too many. Yeah. Which is more than zero is too many.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that I've actually heard multiple times people say that they couldn't get past the beginning because the QTEs.
What's weird is it's very front loaded with the QTEs.
Yes,
like
it is.
Half the QTEs in the whole game are like in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. Like I really don't understand what developers out there who still think QuickTime events are a good idea. They're not. No one likes them. We've been complaining about them for years, and they keep putting them in. It's like,
because they're so easy, and they think it's a level of interactivity. Yeah, but it's the most like pointlessly dumb interactivity that you could have. It's like, I'd rather just have a cinema of it happen.
Yes.
then I don't know. Are there closet QTE lovers out there? Like, are there people that just secretly love it?
I'm sure there's sick people out there that like it.
That's weird.
But there's people out there who likes their pubes burned. I mean,
we need to make a QTE like satire game. Like, just nothing but QuickTime Events. The game.
Well, they already have it. It's called Cook Serve Delicious. Though I will say,
okay.
That
I
game,
did not know that.
that game is fun as hell, though. I will say it almost made it onto my list, but I didn't really give it a chance to play it enough. But I really like it. But it's pretty much QuickTime Event the game.
That's what's great about the state of video games. You say like they should make and it's already been done.
Yeah, and it's not quite QTE the game, but it's just don't stop. Developers, stop. Just stop.
We know it's easy, but just don't.
Don't. Just play the cinematic. We don't care.
Yeah, it'd be easier just playing the cinematic.
Yeah, just do it.
A video file that you play. Like,
we don't and if you're going to put them in, don't make them fail states. Don't make it, you didn't hit this key in time. Oh, you take damage or you die automatically. Oh, that's the worst. Having a QTE that you fail it, you die. Because a lot of times I will still, like, if cinematic starts playing, I'll kind of like, sit back and start watching it. And it's like, press E! It's like, oh, well, shit, I had my hands off the keyboard. Oh, sorry, you've died. It's like, stop that. You guys know better.
Yes.
Like, there has to be somebody in the office going, why don't we put these QTEs in there? It's like, if the manager's like, oh, people love QTEs. They feel like they're interacting with the cinematics. Like, no, we don't.
Yeah.
We feel like we can't watch it because we have to look for the stupid keys. And, like, they did the worst offense on Tomb Raider. For at least PC, it wasn't even the keys you had to press. It was, like, an icon.
Yeah.
It's like, what does that icon mean? I don't know.
And so your brain has to map back, that icon means this thing. Yeah.
Absolutely terrible. Like, that was by far the worst part about that game.
So now with all those negatives, one would assume there has to be some pretty big positives for this to be on the list now. But now I'm second guessing myself. Should this be on the list? But the truth of the matter is that I had a lot of fun playing Tomb Raider. And it was a gorgeous game. I thought the views and like the world that you were in this island were spectacular. Like, it looked really good.
I got a lot of screenshots for desktops.
Like, it was so good that you would stop a lot of times. Like, you'd climb up to a new cliff and you would just look at it. And so few games do that. I mean, I think especially you and I that play games a lot get to the point where we are kind of desensitized by video game artwork. Like, this is, a world, this is a city or whatever. We've seen this in so many different games. But the fact that it made me stop what I was doing and just look around was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and there was just so many areas that I repeatedly would just stop and think, wow, this looks intense. Like all the wrecked ships, on the shoreline, all the various temples when the wind was blowing really hard. It's like, and her hair's
climb
blowing
to the top of that pole.
Like, that was
just
that
like
sucked.
crazy.
I hated that because I was like, man, there's no way I would do.
Yeah,
this is like, we're just gonna die. I'm not climbing up there.
This is the way though that the sound design was really awesome, because as you're climbing this really tall pole to get to the top of this like radio tower thing, you just hear the ambience of the world below you fade slowly. And so you're just slowly getting to the point where all you can hear is this wind. And it's immersive. Yeah. And the other, obvious positive I want to talk about was the hair effects. I mean,
I actually turned them on for a while.
Yeah.
And like when they worked well, it was pretty cool. But a lot of times it was just like her hair.
Now, do you have an NVIDIA card or AMD card?
Yeah.
So I had AMD. So I had the Tress effects, like as it was meant to be seen.
Oh, yeah?
And I have to say, it was all right. I thought it was so funny how much the hair effects were touted in this game. Like, it was this push by AMD to market, like they had a brand name marketed for hair effects, which like Tress effects. Like, it sounded like it was a shampoo or something. But anyway,
Tress effects.
I'm just being silly. Like, the hair didn't really add anything to the game.
The combat was another thing that I really liked, and I know a lot of people from old school Tomb Raiders. And to be fair, I didn't. When they first announced the reboot, I was like, I guess that's cool.
Yeah.
I never played any of the Tomb Raiders. And I actually went back and played Tomb Raider Anniversary, which was the first game with like better graphics.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it for sure. There was a lot less combat, or at least fighting other people in that game. More fighting dinosaurs and bats. But I liked the combat. It felt really good, and I also liked that she would auto hide behind cover. You ran behind. You didn't have to like press a button.
Yeah.
You just ran up to it and she would duck. And that was really fun. Using the bow and arrow was a lot of fun. And so I enjoyed the combat overall. I like the skill progression.
I like the item progression. Like you'd get new items that were able to make you do different things. Like it's kind of felt like a Metroid, and that like I can access these new areas now with this ability. And so like you'd have the little power thing that you could go up wires instead of just down wires, and then you'd have the rope arrow that you could shoot to go different areas, and I thought that was really fun. I mean, I think a big testament to how much I enjoyed this game is that after I completed the story, I kept playing to get everything. Like I went everywhere to get every collectible I could, because I just I liked playing it. I wasn't done.
I was going to do the same thing. I did all of the things went back and got all the stuff for the first area, and I wanted to go back and get the rest, but I never did. But I wanted to, and again, that's saying a lot, because most of the time when I finish a game, I'm like, all right, I'm done. I don't need to go back and play this.
Yeah, me too. Like it was different for me to just keep playing.
Yeah. How was that multiplayer? How'd you think of that?
I did try the multiplayer.
Oh, did you?
I
did not even try it.
And it was just kind of like, it's just dumb. Like, why did they do this? Like, you know what they should have done? Taken all those people and just made a single player DLC.
They even kept getting pressed about DLC when the game came out, and they're like, "Oh, we only plan on multiplayer," and people are like, "Stop! Nobody gives a damn about the multiplayer. Yeah, nobody."
It's dumb. That's the thing. That game and that engine deserves single player DLC.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's a shame that there's not more to do. Like, I would have loved to have played another adventure, or at least had more like tombs. Like,
yes, yeah.
That I guess is one ironic thing about the gameplay shift of the new Tomb Raider is you're not raiding tombs very much.
Yeah,
it's probably 5% of the entire game is spent tomb raiding.
Yeah, I do hope with the second one. I'm hoping that now we've got the origin, that we do actually go into like some ancient tombs and stuff, because I liked, I'm totally fine with this, open world thing, and you're outside in islands and you occasionally find tombs. That's fine, but I want the next game to be tombs. I want the next games to be, at least going through ancient ruins and diving into the earth and all of that. I love that aspect. So I like dungeon crawlers. Period. Like my favorite part of Skyrim is doing the dungeons.
Yeah.
So I really hope that they've kind of got that out of their system for now, and go back to Tomb.
I think the tricky thing, though, with whether it's Lara Croft or James Bond or any character that you're telling stories over and over again, is I don't know if it's possible. It may be possible, but it's very difficult to tell a story where your protagonist has to be different at the end of the story than the beginning of the story.
Right. Yeah.
It has to be a dynamic character.
Yeah.
And that is why, like, you look at the majority of James Bond movies suck. The majority of Tomb Raider games kind of, they didn't suck. But
do you want to go on record as saying a lot of James Bond movies suck? Because
that is objective. A lot of people would agree that.
I'm not into the whole James Bond thing.
Well, the thing is, when I say suck, I mean, I'm not saying that there's no sense of appeal to them or sense of charm. Like, they're kitschy, they're fun, but no one would say that, Moonraker is anything good. I mean, there's a lot of bad James Bond out there, because it got to the point where people like a formula, and then they were just adhering to the formula.
Right.
And after a while, the formulas
getting stale,
aren't sustainable. You know? And so it was interesting that they decided, like, let's go back and let's reboot Tomb Raider so now we can tell this dynamic story where the character undergoes this great change. And it was good, but I don't know what kind of thing they can do for Tomb Raider 2 to make her go through a change again. You know?
I don't think she has to. Like, I think.
Well, then I think the story's not going to be as good.
I didn't think the story was that good in the first place.
Yeah,
like, I think.
Well, I thought the elements of her being a different person were kind of refreshing for a game.
Yeah.
But the actual story that takes place after that change were kind of generic video game story. Like, it could have been in any Tomb Raider, and that wasn't special. So I feel like if that's all there is to offer in Tomb Raider 2, it's gonna feel not as good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't expect a lot from a story, like a Tomb Raider type game. Obviously, it's good that when it's there, giving me a reason to want to do this thing.
But I guess the interesting thing is with this Tomb Raider, the story was the pitch. Like, it was just the the story was the what they were touting the whole time. It's like, you're gonna play the new Tomb Raider and you're gonna experience Lara Croft becoming Lara Croft. Like, it was the pitch. And so if they want to, I'm assuming they'll continue with the same art direction and a similar setting for the next game, but I don't know what their pitch is going to be for it. I don't know.
Raiding Tombs. Honestly, I don't really care.
I would love it if the name of the next game was Tomb Raider: Raiding Tombs.
Raiding Tombs.
Yes.
With Lara Croft.
Yep.
Yeah, I really don't care. Like, as long as the gameplay is still there, I'm still fine. It's like people complain about, this game didn't innovate. I really don't care. I want the game to be fun. I want the game to be interesting. Like, if you have these great innovations, but the game is boring and the story's boring, who cares? Like, well, it was innovative. I didn't enjoy playing it, so I don't really give a damn how innovative it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think the word innovation
has been
doesn't convey
brutalized horribly.
Well, when somebody says it's innovative or innovative, I don't know how you pronounce that.
Innovative, I think.
Somebody says that there's an assumption that the innovation was a good change. So people say, like, oh, it's innovative and that it changes this thing. It's like, well, is it a good change? Because I feel like it has to be a good addition for it to actually be innovation. Like,
yeah, see, that's the thing. It's like, I don't care how many Batman games you make, as long as you're doing a little bit to keep it new and fresh. The core gameplay is so fun that I can see myself playing a Batman like every other year or whatever. Because, like I said, exploring is a lot of fun. Getting all the trophies is fun. The combat is a lot of fun. So as long as you're not doing it yearly, then I could see just keep doing it. But obviously, people are gonna have different thresholds. Like the Lego games, right? I love the Lego games. I played Lego Indiana Jones Start With, loved it. And then I played like Lego Batman and loved that one. And then I did Lego Lord of the Rings. And by the time I got to Lego Lord of the Rings, by the end of it, I was kind of like, all right, this is like starting to get a little stale. There's nothing new. It's pretty much the same exact thing over and over again. But and I would obviously feel that way about Batman eventually. But again, if you just change it up a bit in some ways, I don't really care how much you innovate because the core game is fun. I want more of this. And if they said, well, the next Batman is going to be totally different, it's like, well, no, I don't want that. I want, like, again, add new stuff, but don't take away the core parts that were also fun. I think that's innovating just to say that you innovated is silly.
Yeah,
because it could be bad innovation.
Yeah, I think it does matter. Your reasons for your motivations for innovation. I don't know. It sounds weird, but the reasons you actually want to make changes. If you're making changes for the sake of making changes, that's not a good thing. You need to make changes because, like, oh, we want to fix this thing. There's should be an underlying, like, this thing is either broken or stale, and so we need to fix it. Which is actually a good segue to my next favorite game of the year, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Yes. So Nintendo always has the ongoing problem of simultaneously cashing in on nostalgia while making their games actually being fun. So they have to strike a balance between fan service and innovation. Just kind of like what we're talking about. And so, they have in the past just stamped out the same old crap exactly like they've done before. I don't think anybody really enjoyed Twilight Princess. Like, in terms of Zeldas, I feel like that was kind of one of the weakest entries. But it's not necessarily like it's this awful game. But when you go back and look at it, and you realize, like, oh, these dungeons aren't very good. This, like, the pacing is terrible. Like, there's a lot about this bad.
Yeah.
But there have been some exceptional Zelda games, most notably A Link to the Past. Like, that game just strikes all the right chords. It's fun. There's just a varied amount of dungeons. The gameplay just feels great. And so when they said, we're going to make a sequel to A Link to the Past, I think a lot of people were like, okay. The original, like, the working title was A Link to the Past 2.
Oh, wow.
So it is called A Link Between Worlds. And I actually just got a 3DS for Christmas. So this is like the first game that I played through to completion on my 3DS. And it is awesome. Like, it is so good. And what they've done is pretty amazing, because they've been able to take everything that I love about the Zelda, and specifically A Link to the Past, and they have that in there, but then they have a lot of kind of gameplay changes, some new systems to it that are completely different to any Zelda game. And so it shows that they weren't just resting on their laurels with it. They weren't just kind of like, let's mix up the pot of fan service and see what we get.
Yeah.
They actually, you could tell it was designed with intent and love, and they wanted to make something really good.
Yeah.
So one of the big gameplay changes is that you have the ability to flatten into a painting on a wall.
Oh, yeah.
And you can, like, move across the wall to reach other areas. And it's kind of, it's a really good combination with the system itself, because, the 3DS, you see this stuff in 3D.
Yeah.
And so you can actually, your depth perception depends on your ability to kind of figure out where you should go in some of the levels. And that's not to say, like, it's impossible to play without the 3D on. Like, with the 3DS, you can turn the 3D off. Mm-hmm. You can just watch 2D, and you can get what you're supposed to do without the 3D, but it really adds to the sense of depth. It's really well done.
Yeah.
So that gameplay mechanic is used very well to solve a lot of puzzles in the dungeons. And this game is pretty new, so there's not really any spoilers here. But gameplay wise, there is this in the past, the formula for Zelda has been go to a dungeon, get a thing, use that thing in the dungeon to progress, and now it's in your repertoire. Like, you go throughout the rest of the game, and you need to access an area with a bomb or a hook shot or a boomerang or bow and arrow. Like, you have those in your disposal, you can use them. But the problem with that is it got to the point where, like, you have all these things, and now there's not really any tension. Like, you die, you come back and you get it. What they've changed now is that pretty early on in the game, if you have enough money, you can rent any item in the whole game. Like, and by rent, what I mean is, if you die, it's taken away from you. You have to rent it again. And so, first of all, the money is way more, like, available in this game. There's more rupees to find, and there's more hidden, like, treasures. Like, there's just tons of hidden things to go and do. And so you get a lot of cash, but you have to spend a lot of cash as well on, like, renting your goods and your wares. And you can eventually get to the point where you buy them, but it's like 10 to 15 times the cost of renting it. I think, something like it. Because one, it's 12 times more, but it's in order of tens times
order of
more
magnitude.
expensive. Yes, it's way more expensive to own it outright than to rent it. So early on in the game, you got to do a lot of renting, and it adds tension to you don't want to die. You know?
Yeah,
because I think one of the biggest flaws in Zelda games is you die. It's just a sense. It's just an annoyance.
Yeah.
But this adds more weight to it. Like there was more moments where I was down to a single heart in a dungeon, and I was like, and so when there was a couple of bosses in dungeons, I killed, like, and it was like this is the last swing I can get in, and I killed him, and it just felt way better. It was more rewarding. It was really awesome, and so I really think that change. It's a big change to Zelda games, but I think it worked really well.
So can you get those items normally, like in the dungeons at all?
No. They're only available to either rent through this guy or to buy outright from this guy.
So you get nothing from dungeons other than story stuff.
In dungeons you can get master ore to upgrade your sword. Mm-hmm. You can get tunics to upgrade your defenses. Mm-hmm. You can get this like stamina scroll to upgrade your stamina bar, which is also a new gameplay thing. So you can get permanent upgrades in dungeons, but it's just not as many.
Okay.
In fact, I think there might be some dungeons. I think every dungeon has one permanent upgrade, but they're split up in such a way like, in order to upgrade your sword, you need 2 pieces of master ore to take it to the blacksmith, and so that covers 2 dungeons. The story itself isn't anything spectacular. I mean, like Zelda's. I've never played a Zelda for the story. Like, in a lot of ways, it's very similar. Like, get these 3 pendants, get these 7 sages. Like, it's the same as A Link to the Past. But I think the gameplay changes. And another thing in the past that's been really bad about Zelda games, like from what I've heard of Skyward Sword and Twilight Princess, is you start out and you're just you're wading through dialogue and just like these people talking. And Zelda's not about characters. It's not about dialogue. It's about the dungeons that you and the puzzles. It's about getting in there and actually doing it. And so this game just starts, and it's really cool. I mean, obviously there is a opening cinema and there's a couple of lines of dialogue, but you're controlling your character almost immediately. There's also fast travel in this game, which is kind of interesting for a Zelda game to have fast travel. That is
interesting.
So you unlock save points and you can travel from.
Well, you kind of had fast travel in Link to the Past with the bird and the flute.
Oh yeah.
So it sort of kind of had it.
Yeah, exactly. So you have a bell that you ring, and a witch comes and picks you up.
So, I mean, not that the story matters that much, but is this like an actual sequel, so you're still playing the same Link?
I'm not sure about that. Like, at first I thought it was a sequel, but I don't remember there being any mention of, like, a correlation in the plot. Mm-hmm. I have a theory, but it would be spoilery to share.
Okay.
That they are related in a specific way. But this, I mean, this is probably my favorite game this year. Like,
oh really?
First of all, I love Zelda games.
Yeah.
So, and I was thinking about it, and Zelda games generally come out for Christmas time, and this is like my 4th Zelda game where I've marathoned it before New Year's. Like I've gotten it for Christmas and finished it before New Year's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how long did it take you to beat it?
I'm not sure. It didn't seem like that long, but I totally lost track of time when I was playing it. I don't know what it is about the Zelda games, but I just I get addicted and I can't put it down.
So is there any new, like, I guess, gaming convention added, like, hidden items, like collectibles or anything like that in, or is it?
Yeah, so there is, it's kind of this weird, you find this one cave, and there's this weird squid-looking thing called a Mai, and it says basically, like, I've lost all my babies. Can you find, so there's 300 or maybe 200 of these little collectibles scattered throughout the world. And you'll trip over them. Like, there's a lot of places they're not hard to find. But almost all of them are kind of hidden in a certain way. Like, some of them, you can't see unless you merge into a painting on the side of a wall,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get an angle and you can see them. And so some of them are hidden well. And what's cool is every 10 of these that you collect, he'll upgrade any item in your inventory. So you want better bombs, you want a better hook shot, you want a better boomerang, a better bow and arrow. Like he'll like he actually like swallows it and spits it back out. It's really goofy. Like but that is the main collectible thing. And if you look at your map, it'll tell you like within each section how many of those things are left.
Oh, okay. Good.
So it doesn't necessarily give you pinpoints on every one, but it helps you narrow your search. And just like Link to the Past, there's a light world and there's a dark world. So there are different sections in each, and it'll tell you like the number of the things left in that area. But I came across a lot just naturally playing it through. And I'm trying to think if there's any other... Oh, and there's way more like extra things to do with your money. Like there's like games and stuff you can do. There's a battle tower. And so you start out this battle tower, and the beginner level is just 5 levels of enemies. And then none of the enemies drop hearts. And so when you go in...
Like, so it's like an endurance thing.
Yeah. And so then the intermediate level is 15 levels. And then the one I haven't done yet is 50 levels.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So that one seems pretty tough. So I'm gonna go for it, but it's like you really have to get to the point where you collect enough bottles and then fill it with the best potion each bottle.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is that the potions can only be made by a witch, and you have to have the right like ingredients for it.
Yeah.
So monsters will randomly drop monster guts, monster tails, or monster horns.
Yeah.
And these different like consumables, you need 10 of them to brew each type of potion.
Yeah.
And there's damage potions too, which I haven't tried yet, but like there's area effect damage potions.
Nice.
There's stun potions, and then there's heal all your hearts and then heal 8 of your hearts. So I feel like it's there's just way more to do in a Zelda game. Like in the past I've finished a Zelda game and I'd be like, that was fun, you know, I put it down and I'm done. But I immediately want to start the hero quest, which is like the harder version.
Yeah.
So I've started my second playthrough on it.
So what's different in the harder playthrough?
The enemies are harder.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of like the master quest. Like that's been in every Zelda.
In the first Zelda, wasn't it such that like the dungeons were random, or they changed the random, or they changed the dungeons?
The locations are in the same place, but when you walk in,
it's a different dungeon.
It's a different place. Like
so where you normally went to dungeon 1, it might be dungeon 4.
Yeah, or dungeon 9.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, and so I never did that.
Yeah,
I might go back and try it with save states.
Yeah,
because another cool thing is, you know, with the 3DS, there's virtual console titles, and you can do save states on there.
Yeah,
so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I did that with Mega Man because that game was hard.
Yeah,
I think it was really hard. Huh. So good thing you got the DS for. Yeah. Or the Santa gave you the.
Yeah, good thing.
DS.
I, in the form of Santa, went and picked up my own 3DS. But yeah, my wife got me Zelda, and I got a bunch of 3DS games. So.
Oh really?
Yeah, I got Zelda, I got Pokemon, I got Animal Crossing, I got Mario 3D Land. And it came with Mario and Luigi, which is like their kind of like Paper Mario action RPG. So I've been playing nonstop 3DS.
Wow,
it's pretty, man. It's awesome when you wait this long to get a system, because like so many good games came out this year for the 3DS. Like it's crazy. So I've played that pretty much nonstop since I got it. I've kind of dabbled with the other games, but Zelda's what I've been playing the most. And so then my final favorite game of the year is Assassin's Creed 4. I've been...
Are you playing that a bit?
Playing that. A lot of that. Like, it's funny, a couple weeks ago, Sarah had some friends from out of town, and, you know, they're really close friends, and so she was going to go, like, hang out with them for the day, and I was like, no, I'll be fine, I'll just play games or whatever. And then, like, she leaves, and then, like, I just pick up the controller and start playing Assassin's Creed 4. And like 8 hours later, she's like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, "Oh, hey." Like, and just like didn't move for like 8 hours. Like it was crazy. Like I mean, I played that game a ton, and there is just an obscene amount of things to do in that game. I mean, when you consider like how far have you gotten in that?
Like, not very far at all. I think I just got my first ship, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
The game opens up a bit when you get the first ship, but then like every mission opens up new things. Like,
yeah.
And it gets to a point where you're doing things, 2 or 3 sequences in, and then you realize how big the world really is, and like how many collectibles, like how many treasure chests there are, and how many shanties, and how many worlds there are to go get, and how you can basically take control of these different forts. And
damn those musical sheets, by the way.
Yes.
Those things are bastards
so
to catch.
Tricky. You think music would be a little,
I know.
Heard. I don't know. But, and then you have the ability to, when you plunder a ship, you can have that ship enter your fleet. And there's a whole other game of controlling your fleet and sending them on different missions and securing trade routes so that the missions are more safe.
Yeah.
And there's this whole like min-max to profit maximization for routes, and you can figure out how much cargo you can actually fit on it. And it's crazy. Like it's nuts how much game there is in there. And the funny thing is, like, this is only my second Assassin's Creed game. So I played Assassin's Creed 1 about 3/4 of the way through and decided I've had enough. Like,
yeah.
That game was super tedious. It was just like, do these things over and over again. And it just felt like this boring cycle. So I put it down, and then I heard Assassin's Creed 2 was awesome, but like I kept telling myself, like, I'll finish Assassin's Creed 1 and then I'll play Assassin's Creed 2. Never did. And so finally, when this came out, it looked like this was like the best release for the PS4.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to read the Wikipedia plot and just catch up on it. And I mean, so far the story, like, it's gotten to the point where the Assassin's Creed story is kind of so self-aware that it's kind of a joke now. Like, there's a lot of goofy self-awareness. Like, in this world, Abstergo Entertainment is just making video games called Assassin's Creed. And that when you are on your Animus simulator or whatever, you're doing research for this video game that will be Assassin's Creed, because everybody loves to play as pirates, and it's so they're everywhere in the office. There's Assassin's Creed artwork and like cardboard cutouts and stuff like. But it's all supposedly a front for the Templars to do research into finding the observatory and all this other stuff. Like, yeah. So what's interesting though is you find these emails going around Abstergo Entertainment, and they are kind of like email threads. They're discussing the like future settings that could be in future Assassin's Creed games. Yeah. And you get the sense like these are the kind of discussions they have at Ubisoft. And like one of them talked about like, oh, well, we could have a World War II one. And it said something like, well, land vehicles present a problem to the game engine. So it would be kind of like, so it's like, these are like real problems that it's just kind of this Ouroboros kind of thing. It's just kind of eating itself at this point, which is funny, but I don't know if it's sustainable. But it's there's just so much to do in that game, and the mechanics of climbing and exploring are still really fun. Like, they're refined a lot. I mean, this is the first Assassin's Creed since 1, so I'm assuming those have all been iterative improvements. But for me, it just feels like this, brand new game. So I know it was, after 3, a lot of people were disappointed with that series, and they thought kind of it had run its course. Yeah. But a lot of people are like surprised by 4.
Yeah, I've heard like several people who said that they weren't normally into the other games. Like, they've really liked 4.
Yeah.
So I need to sit down.
It's a blast. Like, it's just, there's so much to do. Like, it's nuts. If anybody ever complains about like DLC for that game, like, oh, you couldn't put that in the $60 games, like, you're getting like so much game for your money. It's crazy.
Well, there was like, well, people, honestly, there at least one person I saw actually tried to complain that, well, you can beat Skyrim in like 5 hours, so I feel like I was ripped off. I'm like, who does that? Who loads Skyrim up and just plays the main quest? Like, who are these people? Who are these weirdos?
Well, what's funny is a friend of mine. The way he generally plays his Bethesda RPGs is he just wants to get the main storyline up. He wants to experience it first.
Right.
And so that is the first thing he did. Like, he's not one of these people that's saying
he beats it, then he's done.
Yeah. So he's going off and doing other things. But he loaded up the game and he's like, yeah, I beat it. Let me show you. And he was level 13. And I was like, you're only level 13 and you beat the game?
Yeah.
What's funny is, like, there's all these cities. It was interesting to see because there's all these cities that he hadn't even been to a single time, but he had saved this world. So you walk in and people, like, he's like triggering. It's like, you know, if you want to be the Thane of my city or whatever, you got to do this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And then somebody will walk by and like, thank you for saving the world. Like, it creates this weird, like, world where this guy has saved everyone yet is a stranger in some towns. I don't know. It's funny. But that they're both Skyrim and Assassin's Creed 4 are just like games where, you know, there's the main story you can mainline and just do them as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But on top of that, there's just this whole other, like, this crazy amount of side quests and missions and collectibles, and like, you could play that game for hundreds of hours easy. It's crazy.
I need to pick that up. Like, my backlog is already ridiculous. I want to beat Dead Rising 3 because I've been playing that a bit, but then I'm thinking maybe I'll go do Assassin's Creed 4. It's one of the games I was hoping to get done this year, but not even close.
And I think there's a way that we can, like, share, like, mission. We can do missions together on the fleet thing or something. Like, there's some sort of connect with friends to make it easier.
Yeah.
It's super ambiguous in its messaging. It's just like, connect with friends to have fun.
Did you try the standalone app?
No, I haven't yet.
I did a little bit, and it's pretty neat because like, it'll open a map, like, you know, show you where you are.
Yeah.
And if you see something, like, you know, if you want to leave your tablet open so you can see the map easier,
that's cool.
Yeah, and then you say, oh, I want to see that. You can tap on the tablet and it'll mark it a waypoint on the game itself. So all of a sudden you see the little waypoint pop up,
that's cool.
And you just run to the waypoint. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've been meaning to do that. But I think those are my favorite games of the year.
Okay, well, they're all terrible.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we'll go through mine. I decided to start mine with this game, partially because I think it came out in like January, and secondly because I want to piss off the fanboys. Is DMC, Devil May Cry. And yes, that's the actual name. First of all, the name is stupid.
Well, I think isn't it DMC : Devil May Cry?
Yes, it's DMC : Devil May Cry.
Which is even better. Like,
yeah,
it should be DMC : Devil May Cry (parentheses lowercase DMC). Like,
just call it Devil May Cry. Just call it Devil May Cry. So I really like this game. It's one of those games I still pick up and I'll play once in a while. Like, if I kind of need like a brain boost, like if I'm feeling groggy, or if I just want to, you know, beat up some enemies, I'll load up DMC and play 1 or 2 levels. It's just a lot of fun. It has a ton of replayability if you are into doing the higher difficulties, and just I'm somebody who absolutely hates redoing the same thing again. Like, if I can quick save, I am a quick save abuser like there's no tomorrow. Because I despise doing the same things over and over again. But with DMC, I have no problem doing it. I've replayed the same stages over and over and over and over again because the combat is just so much fun, and it's so fun to vary it up and try to come up with these creative combos and ways to kill these enemies that I don't really care. I'll just keep playing it. And there are definite flaws. Like, there's no lock-in. I really don't understand what the hell they were thinking with that one, because there's so many times where I'm trying to attack this one enemy and he'll swing at somebody else who's close by. So a lock-in would have helped a lot. I don't know why they didn't have it. And I think there's too many cutscenes. It's like, give me the cutscenes are fine, but give me an option that says, okay, I'm playing through this for the 100th time. I don't need to hit select to get through all the cutscenes. Just let me play the stage. No cutscenes at all. Just let me play through the whole thing. And I think that would be fine. But other than that, for the most part, I think it's great. I do think some weapons are overpowered, like the axe is way too strong. They nerfed it since release, but it's still it does too much damage, and it gives you too many style points. I think it's still, even on the higher difficulties, it's a little too easy to get higher rankings. That said, I haven't gotten triple S on all the hardest level rankings, but I still think it's a little easier than it should be. So I think they could stand to have been a little harder on that. But the combat is a lot of fun. The new Dante isn't really any douchier than the last Dante. I haven't played extensively the old ones. I've played a little bit of 1, and I played a little bit of 3, but I've seen like a lot of playthroughs and walkthroughs, and I've seen the cinematics, and I should have been the one who brought light into your dark soul, or whatever it was. That horrible quote he had. Like, anytime somebody complains about the new Dante's line, that's the one line you need to bring up, because it's so awful.
Isn't that kind of stuff though just endearing in a weird way? Like,
right, but it's supposed to be cheesy, and he's supposed to be like a, kind of a jackass.
What is man but a miserable pile of secrets?
Yeah, so they're both cheesy, and the thing is, what's funny is you hear a lot of people complain about the new ones, like, oh, he's a prick and he doesn't really care about anybody about himself. I'm like, okay, so did you play the game at all, or did you skip through the cutscenes? Because part of the point of the story is he totally starts off that way, that he doesn't really give a damn about anybody else. He's all in it for himself, and by the end, he actually is. He's totally different. That's why anybody who complains about that, I get the impression they didn't actually play it, or they watched maybe some intro stuff or whatever, or heard other people complain and just assumed it was true. So his character does change, but honestly, in a DMC story, who cares? Nobody cares.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've never played a Devil May Cry, but nobody's playing Devil May Cry for the story, right?
No. It's like Bayonetta. I think Bayonetta is better, by the way. And probably one of my favorite games of all time. But Bayonetta's stories, gobbledygook Japanese story.
Yeah,
it's like, what?
I think even like Japanese people are like, this is weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. And I don't care. The game's fun. The same applies to DMC. I mean, it's cool that it's there, but I don't really care. And also the DLC, the Virgil's,
the DMC DLC.
Yes, the DMC Devil May Cry DLC with Virgil felt really good. Like, it felt like its own thing. Obviously, some of his attacks are very similar, like the pull mechanics, but the way they work feels different. In fact, they feel better than with Dante. One thing I wish they would have done with the DLC was to allow you to play as Virgil through Dante stages, and vice versa. Let me play as Dante through Virgil stages, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. That would have been nice. But that does bring up another problem I had with, and this is a big complaint, is they have special enemies. They have these red enemies and they have these blue enemies. Well, with the red enemies, you can only damage them with demonic weapons, and the blue ones you can damage them with angelic. The problem is there's not that many. There's only 2 of each. There's 2 demonic and there's 2 angelic. So you're severely limiting my options for combos, which this game is all about combos, fancy looking combos and juggling and all this stuff. So when you're saying you can only attack these enemies with 2 weapons, that really hinders that. Now, if you would have used it sparingly, that's fine. But there's way too many enemies that are either demonic or angelic only. So those are my main complaints. I felt the game was really good. Regardless, if it's as good as the old ones, I can't say because I didn't play them extensively. But it's still a solid game without question.
Yeah.
And honestly, giving that game anything less than a 5, or like even a 5 is pushing it to me. Anything less than a 5 is just probably somebody's pissy because they probably didn't play it, or they had unreasonable expectations,
or they're really bad at it.
Yeah,
I think it's funny when reviewers have a hard time with a difficult game and just give it a bad score.
Yeah, I don't even think that would be the case here. I think most people who give it bad ratings are people who like the old ones and they didn't want change. And so they heard. Yeah. Now I will say too, the initial Dante, the initial version of him that they released looked stupid. Like he looked Like he hadn't eaten in a week.
Yeah.
Like he was totally emo.
It was so funny though how angry
God.
people were like, "You changed my looks."
People went nuts. He was like smoking a cigarette, and they did change the character pretty significantly after that.
And I've heard. I mean, I know this was on. I've been listening to Giant Bomb's deliberations, and they have a biggest surprise category, and it was kind of like games they expected to not be well that did well, and I think this was on the list, or at least very close to the finalist of it.
Yeah,
but it's kind of one of those like really good surprises because I think a lot of people kind of like didn't expect much out of it, but really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and sadly, it's actually what I've heard was it's the least selling of all the series. Which is really sad because DMC2 was, even the fanboys admit that game was apparently terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been wanting to get the DMC or the Devil May Cry HD collection that has the first 3. I've actually got the 4th one on PC, and I've been thinking about playing that one. Playing them in reverse order here, apparently.
All right.
Start with the last one and do the 4th one, and then go play the 3rd one.
Now, was this any sort of reboot, or was it continuation?
This is a total reboot.
Okay.
This is complete reboot.
So there was no consideration for earlier story. Like it was just
they try to keep elements.
Yeah.
Like he still has his twin brother Virgil, and as with other reboots, it is like sort of an origin story. It's kind of kicks off how I guess Dante got more out of the whole like teenager. Like the world sucks, screw everybody else phase into the
nihilism.
Yeah, into the more still smart assy, but more like let's go kill demons, Dante, and then Virgil kind of breaks off into being kind of a jackass. So there's still those elements from the original, and there's still the whole element of them being the sons of Sparta, who was this, demon lord or something. I don't know the details.
Yeah.
But so there's still those inklings there, but it's still like, okay, none of the other stuff happened.
I kind of like it, or I find it interesting when a new game in a series like shakes things up to the point where half of the fan base loves it and half of the fan base hates it.
Yeah.
Like, because it's, they decided to make all these changes, and sometimes you make a ton of changes, like, I'd say they're almost never universally, like, enjoyed, but sometimes you're universally, like, looked down on. But if it's splitting the fan base, then they're doing something interesting.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, DMC, really good game, and I've put like 70 hours into it, I think, at last count. Because again, I pick it back up again and play it for an hour or two every now and then. It also has one of the best stages I've ever played, in my opinion. It's the club level is really cool. It's got like the music like playing like you'd hear in a club. At least I assume. I haven't been to a club in like a decade. But it's got like the silhouettes of people dancing kind of on the walls in the background, and it has like the music bars. I don't know what you call that, like thumping with the music, and I just really really like that stage. The music and everything together just make for a really great experience for that. It's probably one of my favorite levels ever.
You're killing like things while these people are dancing. Like,
it's all like on the background walls of the stage, because the whole idea is like you to fight these demons. They're in kind of this like split off of the world. There's like a connection. So there's remnants of our world there. That's why you can like see the people dancing and whatnot. But it's just a really cool stage, and the music is just really good for that stage as well. My next game would be Tomb Raider, but we already talked about that. I'll just say that I understand people who hated the QTEs. I'm with you 100%. But just suffer through them and get to the good part of the game, because I know at least 2 people who couldn't get past the intro because of all the QTEs, because not because they couldn't beat it, but because it was just so frustrating. So yeah, Tomb Raider is on there. The next one is Saints Row 4. Now, I like Saints Row series, but I've never actually finished any of them except for this last one. Like, I've started playing them and enjoyed them, but just for whatever multiple reasons, never finished them. Saints Row 4 is a hell of a lot of fun. It's the addition of superpowers really opens it up, and it's really fun running through town and jumping between buildings. It's a great superhero game, which is, you would never think you would say about a Saints Row game. But the superpowers are a lot of fun. The humor and the writing is really well done. Zinniac in particular is just a really interesting villain. And again, a lot of it's just such a funny game. Like, the girl that I'm dating, Sarah, she actually started watching my Let's Play of it, and she bought it because she liked it. And she's, telling me how she's cracking up at all these different lines. And it's not just, fart and dick jokes the whole time. It's, there's a lot of really good humor.
Still plenty of that, though.
Oh, right? Well, there's definitely that.
Okay, good.
I think there's still a dildo bat, I think, somewhere in the game. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just really well written. It's just a funny game. It's just really fun to play. It's just fun to run around. There's so many clothing options. It's insane. Like, there's just so much different clothes you can buy and wear. And again, the powers really add a lot of interest to it. Now, one complaint I've heard is that because of the powers, the cars become useless. I'd agree. That's pretty much true. There's really no reason to drive. I did it sometimes anyway, just because I wanted to drive. I was like, you know what? I could, super jump over there, but I want to drive my car around. So I would drive a vehicle or fly a helicopter or whatever, just because I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So I do agree, though, it takes kind of that aspect out.
Yeah, because it's kind of special when you have no other means of conveyance to be flying over this city that, oh man, it would take me forever to get there otherwise. And so that's kind of like it the powers are awesome, but it is a kind of devalues other means of transportation.
Right.
So I can see that.
Yeah, and I definitely understand those complaints.
Yeah.
And I guess, on one hand I'm like, yeah, I understand that, but on the other hand I'm like, well, just drive. Like,
yeah.
If you want to drive. I did it. Like, sometimes I would drive.
No, but I think it takes some of the, and I mean, these are just tiny complaints. So it's, these are still on the best games of the year list, but it could take away some of the specialness of, like, oh my gosh, I'm flying this jet. Like,
I definitely agree about that. Like, the jets and stuff, it's like, when I fly a jet, when I can jump over there faster. Mm-hmm. But it was just, I don't know, it was just so much fun. The loyalty missions where you ran on missions with your various crew members that you had saved. A lot of those were just hilarious. Like, there's one where, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but you had to fight like a evil version of yourself, and it's whatever you look like with an evil mustache. And Sarah was telling me that she played a female character and her evil twin had a mustache. I was like, oh my God, like that's awesome. That's brilliant.
I know what they do if you start your character with an evil mustache.
Maybe they put like a second one.
Yes.
A second evil mustache. Or maybe he doesn't have the mustache.
Yeah,
He's the
you're
good
the
version.
evil.
Yeah, you're the evil version of yourself. But even if you didn't like the other Saints Row games, I would definitely suggest trying it out. And in fact, I know at least one person who said that, she doesn't really like the other games, but she loves Saints Row 4. So I definitely check it out. It was just a lot of fun to play. I put a lot of time into it. I think I unlocked everything. I think I got all the collectibles. And there's a decent amount of collectibles. And the challenge is something else I wanted to mention. There's tons of challenges, like mini games. Most of those are really fun and interesting, and they're varied. There's a lot of variety in the gameplay too. Like, there's one point where you're kind of driving in a tank, like an old school arcade game, and shooting at other tanks. It's like from a top down perspective. Mm-hmm. And there's other parts where you're like running like really fast, like you're on one of those motorcycles and you're picking up stuff. But it's just a lot of variety in the game, and like I said, the challenges are fun, and the challenges will give you bonuses. Like, if you get silver or gold on all of a certain type of challenges, you'll get all kinds of cool bonuses. Like, you're immune to fire, or you're immune to explosions, or you can running doesn't cost stamina, etc. So I don't know, it's just a very varied game and a hell of a lot of fun. My next game would be Dead Rising 3. I haven't finished it yet. I'm still in the process of playing it. But it's definitely everything that I wanted it to be up to this point. It's still, when the first screenshots and movies came out, people were like, "Oh man, it looks too gritty. It looks like they're going too realistic." And if you've not kept up with the Dead Rising series, one of the best parts about it is just it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like the clothes you can wear, the dialogue, and it's just like it's on the borderline of taking itself seriously, but then it's so weird at the same time.
It's amazing that they've been able to pull off that tone so well, game after game, because it's kind of like it does. A lot of times when games intentionally or anything tries to be intentionally cheesy, it's not funny.
Yeah.
But it still maintains an element of taking itself a little seriously, to the point where it's still dumb.
Yeah. And this one definitely doesn't disappoint in that regard. You can wear all kinds of crazy outfits. I found, like a Mexican wrestler outfit and a full knight's set of armor is what I'm wearing right now. It doesn't change anything, but it's, it's just funny to wear.
Mm-hmm.
The killing the hordes of zombies. Well, first off, graphically, it looks fantastic. One of the big things is you don't load ever. Like once you start the game, and as long as you don't die, you run everywhere seamlessly, going in and out of buildings. Awesome. It's really nice and really smooth that you never have to load, because that was annoying with the other two. It was like anytime you had to make a major transition, you'd have to wait for it to load. So that's really nice. And it has so many zombies can be on the screen at once. And you're in a big open city looking out over the city, and you see all these zombies all over the street. It's just really, really cool to look at that. Or you're driving your motorcycle that has a steamroller thing hooked to the front of it through hordes of zombies. And it just looks great, and it's really smooth.
Yeah, I played it a bit at that Microsoft event thing, and it's like being able to just see all those, like, in the distance. You don't see like fog or pop in or anything. It's just zombies as far as the eye can see. I think that's pretty awesome.
They've also listened to a lot of the complaints. The save system is way better. Unless you're playing on Nightmare difficulty, you can save wherever you want. You can just save. Now, you won't load there necessarily, but it saves your progress. So any blueprints in your level and all that will be saved. And if you reload, you'll just go back to the closest like safe area. So that's been fixed. That was a big complaint people had. Survivors are kind of a mixed bag. Most of the survivors you just run into. Like you'll be running around, and all of a sudden you hear somebody calling for help, and you'll see somebody standing on top of a car like shooting zombies. And if you clear those zombies out, they'll thank you. You'll get some experience points, or PP in the game. And then they'll just, run off. Like they're fine. They're safe. So you don't have to escort them back. Now, there are some missions you can do, like side missions, where they will actually join you. And if they die, I thought if they died, they died. But then I just checked before we started recording this podcast, and 2 survivors that I had been dead are now alive again. So I'm not quite sure what happened there. But you can actually, have them come with you, and you can give them directions either with the D-pad, or you can actually use your voice commands. Like I can say, follow me, or scavenge. And if you say scavenge, they'll look for any food in the area, and they'll eat it automatically. And it'll heal them up. You can also give them weapons. Like you can make the combo weapons and give them to them so they actually defend themselves. And the nice thing, too, is they don't suffer durability loss. So you could give them a gun even with 1 bullet, and it'll just keep firing forever. So that's
sounds like a pretty
really
good strategy,
nice.
actually.
Yeah. They're still a pain. They're still really bad because you can hit them and you can harm them. And they have a bad tendency to get in your way. They either get in your way or they fall behind and they'll get surrounded by zombies and killed.
And when they're being, like, I guess, grappled by a zombie, there's nothing you can do.
You can hit them, but you'll probably hit them too.
Right,
that's the problem.
I feel like there should be some special attack or thing where you like separate them. Like,
yeah,
and that it's just that you have to stand back and watch it happen is dumb.
Yeah, I usually don't. I just stab them usually because I think your weapons tend to do less damage to your survivors, but it does hurt them, and eventually you might end up just killing your own survivors. And it seems like they get overwhelmed very, very easily. And there's a lot of zombies in this game. So trying to babysit them to keep them up. I mean, the idea, I think, is that, and they even have stats. Your survivors have stats. so you can like pick the stronger ones. So and in the level up system, you have things that make your survivors better, like doing more damage or having more health. But honestly, the AI is still not good. It's not good enough. I mean, unless I'm just missing something, they're just not good enough to have with you. Now, Dead Rising 2 kind of went the other way. Dead Rising 1, the problem was that the survivors were near impossible to keep alive.
Yeah.
The Dead Rising 2, the best option was just to run. And your survivors, they overcompensated a bit. So now if you just ran through a horde of zombies, your survivors would keep up. If you, as long as you didn't
warping?
stop. I think they would keep warping, and I think the zombies like couldn't grapple them very easily.
Okay.
So I think it was just easier for them to just run through. Now, if you stopped to kill, that's when you got in trouble. So they kind of overcompensated there a bit, and we're kind of back at Dead Rising 3, where they've got a lot of health, and they could take a beating, but it's annoying to like kill all the zombies but one, and then that one zombie grapples your survivor. It's like, geez, come on, you couldn't handle one zombie. I mean, sometimes they do fine, but other times they just seem to like be lost. Like, oh, what's going on? So survivors is still a weak point, but you don't even have to use them. I don't most of the time. And most side missions you do, once you finish it, you're just done. Like, that's it. They don't join you. Sometimes they do. And I don't know if you can send them back immediately or if you have to go to the safe house. But from the safe house, you can either call survivors in or you can put them away. And also, if you have the companion app for your phone, if you're out and about, you can actually call for companion help, which is pretty cool. Like, I actually tried it and it worked. Like, the companion just materialized right next to me. So that was pretty cool that you can do it. And there's tons of collectibles. There's so much stuff to collect. There's blueprints. Blueprints allow you to put your different weapons together, which if you've not played the other Dead Rising, well, the second one, is when they introduced the combo weapons. But you can like combine machete with boxing gloves and get like these Wolverine claws. And
of course,
there's like 101 blueprints in the game, and I think I've even gotten like half of those. There's also super weapon combos where you take a regular combo weapon and then add it to something else, and it becomes even more ridiculously powerful. There's also vehicle blueprints where you combine two vehicles together. My favorite is the motorcycle with the steamroller, because it's like basically a really fast maneuverable steamroller. It's pretty insane. But overall, it's just a hell of a lot of fun, and the timer thing is a lot better as well, because the other Dead Rising, it was like, okay, we're going to give you this mission. You have until this time in game time to finish it, or else you lose the main mission. This one, it's not clear, but it seems like it's like, okay, you have 5 days until the bombs drop here, and you have your main story mission. You can do it at whatever pace you want, but my assumption is you still need to finish the whole thing before the 5 days is up. So if you want to just focus on main story for a while, you could do that. And then if you want to just fart around for 12 in-game hours or whatever, then you can do that. It's not, each section itself is not timed, but overall you still probably have to finish the whole thing before the bombs drop. So that's really cool that is there. So overall, it's just a hell of a lot of fun to play, and it's one of the few games that I've played recently where I'm just like, I start playing it and I just want to play more and more and more. Like I'm just going to do this and I'll be done. And it's like, well, an hour and a half later and I'm still playing.
That's why I went like with Assassin's Creed 4. It's just like, just one more thing, just one more little collectible, or just this, like, or the way I've been about Skyrim. It's just those games that get you hooked. Where you just got to get one more thing. Yeah.
My next would be a little known RPG called Driftmoon. And I might be a little biased to Driftmoon, I'll admit. This is probably this is the first game I got a review copy of. It was a game by two people, a husband and wife team. And it's an RPG, and it's a very simplistic RPG, and they wanted it simplistic. The combat's simple, the character progression is very simple. It's not a lot of depth to it, but it's just really fun to play. It's just a really charming little RPG. The graphics are good enough to get what they're trying to get across. The story is actually pretty interesting. And I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's just a lot of fun to play. And like I said, it was just a nice, relaxing RPG. Because normally, if I play an RPG, I'm like, okay, how can I min max and make sure I've got the best build and make sure I've got maximizing my talent points into the perfect spot. And this game, I was like, this talent looks interesting. I'm gonna pick that one up. Like, I don't know if it's any good or not, but it looks fun. So it was just really fun. It's like, I think $10 normally, something like $10 or $15. And it took me quite a few. I forget how many hours it took for me to beat it, but I very much enjoyed Driftmoon. So check that out if you haven't.
So what's the combat is like? It's like turn based, or
it's just action. It's like
okay.
Basically left click, and you get like stabs, which you can use to spell cast, and you can also get a bow and shoot arrows. But that's pretty much it. And you have a very simple party system. Basically, they're either with you or they're not. And like you don't really control them in any way. They just attack, and if they get defeated, they just go unconscious until the battle's over, and then they wake back up. So it's very, very simplistic. It's not difficult, but it's supposed to be. It's intended to be just kind of a relaxing, fun, cheerful. Might not be a good word for it. There is some a little bit darker tones, but a lot of the dialogue and the characters are
casual,
just,
like
and not in a dirty casual kind of way. Good casual.
It's not like free to play transactions.
Yeah. It's a lot of the characters and the dialogue are just funny. They're just weird. Like Travis would hate this, but you actually do a quest for like this evil creature in this cave that turns out to be like a clown. And
see, I was gonna play this game, and now I don't know.
But it turns out he's an okay guy. But
is he still a clown?
He is still a clown.
Then he's not an okay guy. He's by definition evil.
Everybody, I hope there's no clowns listening. I hope they're not offended.
I
never.
But if you're a clown and you're listening to this podcast, then listen to a different podcast. I do not want you as a listener. I will go out on a limb and just go ahead and disenfranchise all of our clown listeners.
You just
say that I hate you all.
I was checking our stats. You just alienated half our stats.
Fine.
Half our viewers.
I didn't want those stats.
All of our viewers are clowns.
Clowncast.
My last game of the year would be The Swapper. This game did not get enough hype. It's a puzzle game. It's set like in space. I think you're on a planet. I think you're on like an asteroid or something like that. But it's based almost entirely around puzzles, and the puzzle mechanic is that you find this gun that allows you to replicate yourself. You can make up to 4 replicas and they all move the way you do. So if you push right, all your replicas push right. If you push left or move left, they all move left. If you jump, they jump. So, and you have to use that in order to hit switches or pull levers or, do whatever it is that you need to do. And they use it in various ways, and it does start off pretty easy. Like the early puzzles are pretty easy. But it actually does pick up a bit later, so you get to the point where you fix it or you solve a puzzle and you get that good sensation of I feel smart, I feel accomplished because I get that puzzle. And there's also this ambience, like this. It's got that creepy space vibe where you're alone, but then there's somebody else there, and she's sending you these radio transmissions. And it's got that kind of creepy space static sound to it. And there's these other creatures there that you run into that there's something going on with them as well. I don't want to really spoil anything, but it's just an overall a good package. If it was just the puzzles, I would say this was a good game, maybe not a great game. But with the ambience and the art style and just the feeling that you get of just kind of being alone and trying to get through this mess alive, as well as kind of thinking about things, because when you start replicating yourself with that gun, you can kind of transfer your essence to another clone. So let's say I'm kind of down in a ravine and there's a hill up top. Well, if I shoot a clone up there, I can transfer my essence, as it were, to that clone that's at the top. So now I become on the top of the hill, and then I can run off a cliff and the one that's at the bottom of the hill will just die. So it's like it's kind of weird because now you're in this whole new body, but your old body now is died. You fell into spikes, but your soul or your essence or whatever has transferred into this new body, and that's going to happen over and over and over and over again in the game as you progress. So that's kind of an interesting underlying element to the game. But overall, like I say, it really has not got enough traction or hype.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
I've heard some good things about it, but I haven't heard. I actually just bought this today. So
yeah.
It was on sale. It's $5 on the Steam sale, and so I'm planning on playing through that soon.
Yeah,
but I've heard good things.
Yeah, and even I've seen on the indie gaming subreddit, I've seen a thread people talked about. What is your indie game of the year? A few people actually did mention Swapper. Yeah. So it isn't just me. Again, I really liked it. If you don't really care about atmosphere like at all, then I still think it's worth the $5. But if you really want to get into that kind of creepy space alone atmosphere, I would absolutely suggest picking up the Swapper.
Cool.
But yeah, that's my list. I don't really have a game of the year.
I
don't have like one game that I'm like, this is the best game I've played this year.
I guess I did say earlier that
like you did say
Zelda. Yeah, that was my goatee.
But yeah, that is all of my favorite games that have come out this year.
Cool. I think there was one quick category I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of the giant bomb categories that I like. But what is your biggest disappointment of the year?
Aliens, Colonial Marines.
Yeah, that game was. Would you say it was straight up broken?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like it was. Yeah, it was. The AI was just abysmal. You spent way too much time fighting human enemies in an aliens game. It's just it didn't have that creepy like ooh look out like vibe an aliens game should absolutely have like because I didn't worry about the aliens, like I worried more about people with guns. Mm-hmm. And I think Angry Joe looked at the stages and like half of them you were fighting enemies or human enemies. It's like this is aliens game. Like, what the hell are you doing? And the AI was atrocious. The story was terrible. Like, the whole thing where they brought back a character in just the most asinine way. It's just like, it was like almost everything about that game.
I had not endured it, but I had heard nothing but universal condemnation for that game. It's just, it was unfinished. It was broken.
It was obviously unfinished. And like I said, the AI in particular was just
it's just I guess an example of a studio that decided we don't want to put any more money into this, let's just cut it for what it is now. But
well, people were speculating that is it 2K the publishers?
Yeah, because it's Gearbox that made it, right?
Or like they were siphoning off money that was supposed to have went to Aliens to go to Borderlands.
That's just wrong. Because who is that? Wasn't Sega involved in that somehow?
At some point, Sega was involved. I think. I don't think they were involved with the final release. Okay. I don't think. I think they were originally going to do it, but then they cut it loose. I don't remember. Well, I think the worst part was Randy Pitchford was. I forget some of the stuff he said, but there was some shadiness going down with that whole aliens thing, and
this is like some dirty business. So because Aliens Colonial Marine was so bad, Borderlands 2 could be better.
Yeah, that's what people are speculating. And what's crazy too is like there's demos. People found videos of the demos before it was released that looked better than the release game.
So
like
weird.
Both graphically and sections of the game. Like there's one where you had to take this mobile turret and you put it in this tunnel, and the premise is all these aliens are going to come out. And in the demo, that's what happened. Like you have these waves of enemies you never could kill by yourself. So like the placement of the turret and keeping it out was very important. Well, in the actual game, like I remember thinking when I played it, like I don't really even need this turret. Like there's not enough enemies that really come out to make it bad. And I think I played on a harder difficulty as well. So it was just awful. Yeah. Don't bother.
My biggest disappointment of the year was SimCity.
Ah, yes.
That sucked balls because I was so excited for the game. I loved SimCity, like, and I was even in denial about like, no, it's gonna be okay. Like, yeah, it's DRM or whatever, but there's gonna be all these new features. Like, I'll live with it. I'll be okay. Like, I'll be able to play with other people. I played the demo. I had a lot of fun. You know, I didn't get really deep into it, but I was invested, and I was willing to overlook all the crap because I was believing the things that EA was telling me. And one of the worst launches of all time, it was unplayable. And so, which means the single player was unplayable.
Yeah.
Like, the game was completely unplayable. And, like, I bought the collector's edition. Like, I was invested.
Yeah.
I was just, I loved it. I loved the way that the resources were split out on a grid and that you could resource lock these different, like, services, and you had to manage your city services and everything. And so the most obvious and fundamental flaw was, the always online DRM.
Yeah.
But the more I played it after I was eventually able to get on and play it, the more I realized that the game's end game was broken. Yeah. Like, it gets to a certain point where you can't really grow out and expand in logical ways. You kind of have to just you have to figure out how to break the game in order to progress, to get more resources. And on top of that, like, just the way it handles regions and cities, and how, like, I'm always bound to just a bunch of small patches of cities. I can't just grow my single city out and out and out. I have to have lots of different cities that will always be this same size grid, rather than having natural suburban sprawl.
Yeah.
And I get what they were going for. Like, they were trying to present a case against suburban sprawl. They're supposed to say, like, no, it's all about urban development, and you're forcing to perform urban development. But it's like, in a way that constraint made it less fun. Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, well, I have to do things this way. But ultimately, the biggest, like, part of that game is that they just kept lying about the fact that always online DRM was necessary, and they kept saying, like, oh, well, no, all this cloud stuff happens in the process. And it's like, I'm a web developer. Like, I design cloud infrastructure. Like, I know the way you're supposed to do things, and you don't do computation in the cloud. You offload that to the client. Yeah. So you basically have persistence and storage accessible on your servers on the cloud, but, like, you want to offload as much processing onto the client. So this theory or this explanation that, oh, well, the game can't function without the servers because there's all these, super tough calculations being done on the server that can't be done on your computer. Yeah. It's like, that's total BS. That's a lie. And it was later proven by somebody who hacked the game in order to run the game locally. So it could have been done. Like, now, granted, the game didn't run perfectly locally. Like, there were some things that it had to go back to the server for. But that was just checking into the server, and, like, it was not calculations. Like,
and that was stuff too, like checking, like, connecting other lots. I don't know what they're called.
Like, other cities to that region.
Right, but it wasn't like they were saying, like, traffic and all this other stuff that they said was factored on the cloud.
Because if you think about it, if you, their goal is to sell, say they sell 1 million copies, they're not going to be running calculations and processes for 1 million people that can't be run on your computer. Yeah. Like, that's dumb. That's nonsense. And these are just lies. Like, just admit it. They're lies. And, like, EA,
and they kept it up too, man.
Yeah.
They
just kept doubling down on it. It's just crazy. Like, and I did get free games out of it, but ultimately, it was so bad. I wish SimCity just didn't exist. Like, I wish we lived in a world where there was still no SimCity reboot. Like, because at least then I would have a shred of optimism about that series. But, man.
Yeah, I guess it was disappointing for me, but, like, as soon as they announced the online online DRM stuff, I was like, nope. I'm like,
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I dealt with it in Diablo, and it bit me in the ass on launch day. I'm like, I'm not doing it again. Like, I'm gonna put my foot down. I'm not gonna support them for doing DRM, and I do feel pretty vindicated.
Yeah,
that it
no,
was a total
total vindication. Like, yeah, I mean, if anything, it's probably a good thing that precedent went so terribly just for the state of consumer power. Because if everything went smoothly and to plan, then people would have been quieter and quieter for each new always online DRM release, and so it's probably historically a good thing that it blew up in their faces.
Oh yeah, I'm very glad that it blew up. Like, spectacular. I mean, even like not that Kotaku's a great site, but they had like a SimCity disaster watch.
Yeah.
So they would post like new stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Because man, it was such a clutter. And I do think the worst part is them lying about it.
Yeah.
Like them just like
multiple,
and they would get
times.
caught and they would just keep lying anyway.
Lie again. And it's kind of a weird interest of mine, but I'm really interested in like the concept of video games preservations, like preservation of games, so that because I still to this day go back and play Nintendo games or Super Nintendo games, and emulators are awesome for that, but there's still something about being able to play the original game, the original format, and everything. And a game like SimCity, when the servers are turned off in X years or whatever, you're never going to be able to play that game. And now, obviously, there's going to be games where that's true, like MMOs, but it doesn't have to be that kind of game. Like, they're forcing it to have an online dependency that is not necessarily a part of the online experience. So that just bugs me, and it's something I've decided to go back, and I'm buying all my games physically now, so that I'll be able to play them in the future, because like, I don't know, like Xbox Live for the 360 is going to be gone at some point. I mean, if I want to go back and play a 30-year-old Xbox 360 game, I'll be able to do that if I have the disc, But if I rely on to be able to download it, hopefully by then though it'll be cracked wide open, and that there'll be ISOs for every single game release, and you can just pirate them.
I would imagine that's going to happen. Like,
yeah,
because I don't trust the companies to do it. I think people will find ways to take those digital downloads, and you can burn them or do whatever you need to do.
But that's the ironic thing, is that the biggest advocates for video game preservation are doing it illegally, like through piracy. I mean, I'm not an advocate of pirating anything that you can buy in its current state. You should support the industry.
Yeah.
But if you want to go out and find if you want to go play a Sega Dreamcast game, it's not like Sega's going to get any money for that.
Yeah.
So burn a copy if you want to. I don't care.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are our biggest disappointments of the year.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else that was that.
What was your favorite game this year that didn't come out this year?
If I could only pick one,
or you can pick a couple.
Okay, Dark Souls, definitely. I only played it this year, and I was afraid the hype would overshadow how good it was, and it did not. The game was just damn good. A game is really, really good to me when I finish it, and I'm immediately thinking about my next playthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, very few games do that these days, and Dark Souls did that. And like I said, it got so much hype. Again, typically when a game gets a lot of hype, I start to like think, okay, now I think it's being overblown.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of went in with a little bit lowered expectations of Dark Souls, but it's just a really, really good game. It's got its flaws. The camera's not perfect. There's times where the camera just really blows. And there's a few beginner's traps here and there, but it's rare. And the thing is, like, Dark Souls is kind of hard. I don't even call it hard. It's a good combination of difficult and punishing, which I think is very difficult balance to achieve, and I think they did a good job of it. And it's fair. For the most part, it is fair. There's a few times where there's no reasonable way you could have expected this or known to do this thing. But for the most part, it's very fair. Like, it's not like, oh, this floor just falls out from you when you walk under it. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way you could have known that. Like, if there's like a trap, you can actually, if you pay attention, you can see the tile is kind of sticking up.
Yeah.
And if you look around, you can actually see the hole in the wall where the arrows will come out of. So it's, you know, it's there. You just have to be careful and take your time. So I really like that about Dark Souls.
Yeah, I think the biggest telling factor on a really difficult game is how you feel after you die.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like, oh, that was dumb, like, I couldn't have seen that, that's stupid, that's one thing. But if you feel like, all right, here's what I need to do next time. Like, these are the mistakes I made. If you're blaming yourself rather than the game, and you're honest with yourself,
Yeah.
like,
Well, yeah.
then it's totally like that's the right kind of challenging. Like, that's the kind of difficulty curve that makes the game interesting.
Right, I agree. Also, Witcher 2, I just played this year. Witcher 1, I did not like at all. I won't go into it. It's just say it was not a good game at all.
Mm-hmm.
Witcher 2 was great. I loved it. The combat was weak. It was mediocre, I guess I would say. It was passable. I hope the next one, they kind of jump it up a bit. And there's some weird annoyances here and there. Like, for example, you can't loot while you're in combat. And it keeps you in combat for a few seconds after you've killed the last enemy. So you can be standing over the loot and wait for like 2 to 3 seconds just to get it to let you to loot. And that was from the first one, so they still haven't fixed that.
Yeah. So do you need to play the first one to play the second one?
No.
Okay.
I don't care if the story was important. I would still say no, because the first one, like, I don't see how the first one has like an.
I guess what I mean.
Story wise,
should I read up?
I would
before
read
I
it.
read Witcher 2.
Yes,
Okay.
I would read it just so you kind of know what happened. But yeah, don't play it.
Okay.
Don't play it. But the story is interesting. It's kind of got that Game of Thrones problem though. So there's so many characters because it's based on books. So there's so many characters that you probably should or could be familiar with if you've read the books.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, there's by the end of the story, I was kind of like, I think I know who that is.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many names and regions that are referenced. I feel kind of lost. I had the gist of what's going on, but the nuance is lost on me. But the story was cool and interesting. The characters, I really like the characters. The graphics are really, really good, especially considering it's kind of an older game. But I don't know. It's just a lot of fun to play. There's potions that you can brew that help you in combat. So there's gathering component. There's a little bit of crafting, not a whole lot. You can craft like traps and bombs. And especially if you play on the higher difficulties, you really need to take advantage of all that. The potions, the bombs, the traps. Like, you need to use it all to your advantage when you're fighting this large group of enemies. But it was just damn good. It was very, very much looking forward to Witcher 3. Sleeping Dogs is another one I played for the first time this year. Great game. Didn't expect much. I don't know why I just didn't, but really liked it. I liked it more than the last Grand Theft Auto game I played, which was San Andreas, which I actually didn't like San Andreas very much. So I guess it's not saying much.
Yeah, I never played that one actually.
I thought it was really boring, but I didn't finish it. Well, because it was boring. But Sleeping Dogs, I don't know. It was just really fun. Again, interesting story. Overall, the mechanics were fun. I like the upgrade system. I just had a lot of fun with it. I always suggest people buying it as soon as it goes on sale. And last, I'll go with The Walking Dead, because I just realized I only played it at the beginning of this year.
Yeah, I think that goes for me too. Like, I started it earlier this year, and I still haven't finished it.
You haven't finished it?
No, I haven't.
Oh man,
I need to finish it.
What chapter are you on?
I was halfway through 4, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why I got sidetracked and then need to go back and do it.
Hopefully your save isn't borked.
I know. I keep hearing like horror stories.
That happened to
about
me.
the game save.
My fourth. I think I was either finished the 4th chapter or I was about to start the 4th chapter, and my save was corrupted, and like they've just never bothered to fix it. Like Telltale, like they make some good games, but man, they're kind of slacking ass on the tech side.
Yeah.
Like that's a major problem. Like,
oh yeah.
I don't care how old you're. Well, I won't go that far, but when your game is less than 2 years old and you have a problem that corrupts save files, you fix that shit. Come on, you guys, get off your asses. But other than that, it was a lot of fun. The gameplay is obviously very, very weak. but the story was so good.
Yeah.
And the characters were so interesting, and I got so vested in the characters, I didn't really care. It was just a great story, and I keep trying to tell people who don't either like the show or don't like zombies, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't even really like the show that much.
It's not really about zombies.
Yeah, it's not. It's not about zombies. It's about the people who are just kind of living and dealing with the situation that they've been handed.
Yep.
And it's just a really, really good story. So that would be, those are I classify those as better late than nevers.
Yeah.
Where I talk about them.
2012's 2013 game of the year.
Right, yeah.
So I was thinking about this, and I think, Walking Dead would be on my list as well. But the other two I came up with was XCOM, Enemy Unknown. I didn't start that until January this year.
That's right.
So I was a little late to the game on that, but man, I was hooked on that game. Like, it was just,
that game is so good.
Yeah, it was so addictive, and I feel like it was one of those games where you start playing and then you look at the time and it just feels like time warp. Like, it's just like 3 hours just went by. Like, how's that possible? Like, it felt like about 4 minutes. Like, it's just crazy. Like, I just got sucked in, and the gameplay on that game is so fun. Like, it was so good. And another game that's kind of a game that came out in 1993, NBA Jam Tournament Edition.
Oh.
We got a arcade cabinet at the office, like a dedicated 4-player NBA Jam, and we played that game a lot this year. I looked at what's cool about that game is it keeps your records on your initials. So I played 145 games. I was 145. That's just against the computer.
Yeah.
Or no, I think it does keep records against human opponents as well. And we had a couple of double elimination tournaments at my work too. And I think I won one of those, and I lost a couple of those. It was pretty split evenly. Like, I can beat the computer. I'm good at the computer, but it's really tough playing a human opponent because you never know what they're gonna do. The AI is atrociously cheap in the game. It's rubber banding and full effect, and it's crazy. It's a midway game.
Speaking of cheap AI in arcade games, you want to add Mortal Kombat 2 to your favorite games of the year?
Yes, and so we also got Mortal Kombat 2. What we did is, back in the 90s, these midway cabinets the cabinets themselves were exactly the same, but the control panels were different, So we just got a Mortal Kombat control panel and then bolted it on, like, you could interchange the NBA Jam control panel and the Mortal Kombat control panel, and then just change the PCB inside the cabinet. So right now it's rigged up to go back and forth between NBA Jam and Mortal Kombat 2. And I have to say, I've yet to beat Mortal Kombat 2, so I need to get on that.
Well, they have always been notoriously bad at writing enemy AI.
It's just so...
And it's either falls over and does stupid stuff, or it's like gives split-second like frame reactions that no human could ever do.
Yeah. Like, your ability to uppercut the AI is almost impossible.
Like they'll throw you out of an uppercut every time.
Yeah, or throws. You can't do throws or uppercuts. It's crazy.
Yeah. The Mortal Kombat team has always had atrociously bad AI.
Yeah. But it's like, it's funny because that's not really what, those games, when they were successful, there was never one person playing them. It's all about, like, loser pays, winner stays, and just cycling through tons of people. And I remember back in its day, there were, Street Fighter was the king for a while, but for a short time, there was a big resurgence of Mortal Kombat play, and you could, Street Fighter would be empty, but then I think it went back to even after a while.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I played a good bit of arcade games this year, and played my fair share of brawlers as well.
You played a few of those.
Yeah. I guess another game I played a lot of is X-Men versus Street Fighter. I got that.
Oh, yeah.
For the for one of my arcade cabinets, and that game's a lot of fun.
That game is just fun.
Yeah, I like it. So I think that wraps it up for this year.
Yeah, I think so.
I think we've talked through quite a bit again, and we'll have our special retrospective on the best episodes of 2013 coming up as well. So you can relive all the moments from episodes 1, 2, and 3. No, we're not actually having a retrospective. But, we took kind of a break because we kind of, we had family in town and, hanging out with friends and stuff for the holidays. But we're hoping to get back into a weekly groove soon for episode number 4. I think, games are going to start right back up. February and March, we're going to have releases. So
I haven't even kept up with what's coming out next year, other than Watch Dogs and the new Thief, which
do they have a date for Watch Dogs yet?
I don't know.
I don't think they have a date. I'm not sure, but March is going to be Infamous Second Son, Titanfall.
That's coming out February?
Metal Gear, yeah. No, March.
Oh, March.
I think February. I'm looking forward to Bravely Default, which is an RPG for the DS.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
So Johnny will be getting his 3DS shortly. So we can both,
yeah.
You have Let's Plays for your 3DS.
I'll expense it out to the podcast.
And then, I looked, there was a bunch in March. There's a Diablo 3 expansion, I think is in March.
Yeah.
That'll
be interesting to see.
I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, I think they've realized a lot of their errors. They're taking the auction house out. They're redoing the item drops, which was honestly my main complaint.
Yeah, everything else about that game felt really good. It was the auction house and the item drops that really ruined it. So that game is definitely salvageable. And so if they do things right with this expansion, it could be awesome.
I'm most hyped for Watch Dogs, though.
Watch Dogs looks awesome.
I am very much looking forward to that. I hope they don't mess it up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very much looking forward to them messing up Thief.
Yeah,
speaking of fanboying, I will be probably fanboy ripping that game a new a-hole.
Yeah, so we get prepared.
Yeah.
I think Destiny might be really good.
Yeah.
That looks awesome. There's probably going to be quite a bit of downloadable titles that we don't foresee happening, and then could be all of a sudden something awesome. But there's also, I don't know how this is going to be, but Metal Gear Solid 5 Prologue or whatever it's called, Ground Zeroes. It's not Metal Gear Solid 5 proper. It's like the prologue to Metal Gear Solid 5. Comes out in March.
So when does Metal Gear Solid 5 come out?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's just Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes or something like that.
Oh.
And it's supposed to be leading up. Kojima's so weird.
Kojima, why are you so weird? Why are you so weird? I still want to play through all of them. I've actually played through 2 and 4. I don't know why such odd... Oh, I do know why. At least on the 4th one.
I've only played through 1 and 2.
Yeah. And I like them. 4 in particular, graphically, looked pretty damn good. But I liked it. I don't know. I wouldn't consider myself a fan.
I need to play through 4. I need to get a PS3. I don't have a PS3.
I know. Just keep borrowing mine every time there's a PS3 game.
Yeah, it's funny because I wanted to play Last of Us this year a lot, and I'm pretty sure it would be on my list. But I'm in the unique position that I traded my PS3 for an arcade cabinet. So I need to just go ahead and buy it.
See, I have the PS3. I just need Last of Us. I really do want to play it, though.
Yeah.
There's that other game that I was looking forward to called... There's 2 games that were coming out with souls in the name. One of them just came out. The one with the Lost Souls, or the actor, it was the David Cage.
Oh,
game.
Beyond Two Souls.
Right. It's not that one. The one coming out next year. It's where this guy he's like an investigative detective, and he gets killed, but now he's like a ghost, and he's he's exploring his own murder, trying to figure out who murdered him. That one seems cool. I wish I could remember the name of it. Soul Suspect, I think.
I haven't heard of that one.
That one was at some game event. I forget. That one. Dark Souls 2 is this year. I have to say, the more I hear about Dark Souls 2, the more skeptical I am, though.
Yeah.
Because it seems like there's two problems I have with it. One, it sounds like they are really pushing like darkness as a thing. So you have to balance between using a torch versus using a shield. And I'm like, I hate that. Like, it was stupid in Doom, and it's dumb, and it was stupid in the Tomb of Giants and Dark Souls. Like, it's alright if it's one area. It's annoying, but, I'll tolerate it if it's an area. But, like, if you want to do a significant portion of your game, it's like, ooh, it's hard because it's dark. It's like, that's not real that interesting.
But it's not fun.
It's not fun.
It's like, hard doesn't always mean fun.
Yeah, it's just tedious to have to keep switching back and forth. The other thing is, it sounds like they really want to shove PvP down everybody's throat. Like, in the original, or in Dark Souls, rather, you could avoid getting... Like, the only time you could get invaded by another player is if you were in human form. Mm-hmm. And by default, you weren't in human form. You actually had to spend humanity to go into human form. And you only really went into human form if you wanted to summon someone. So the idea being, well, if you want to get that extra power from summoning people or an NPC, people can invade you. It's like, whatever, that's fine. I almost was never in human form. I did do a little bit of PvP. It was okay. I definitely don't see what the big fuss is about. It wasn't that interesting. But, like, if I'm deep in a dungeon, far away from a campfire or bonfire, I don't want some random butthole just to show up and attack. Because, at least in Dark Souls, the invader has a huge advantage over the person you're invading. Because monsters don't aggro on you. So you can just run right through the monsters, or try to hide behind them and kind of pick at the enemy, or try to get them to aggro the monster so that they're on them too. So it's just way easier if you're an invader. And the other problem is, unless they do something to prevent this, which they probably won't, is that 2 to 3 months after release, you're going to have the people who know where all the good items are, and they'll go and get those items and stay at a low soul level, and they'll just like hang out and farm in lower level areas, and like kill players and just be grossly outgearing them.
Yeah,
I can absolutely see that happening, and like it happens now. But so I think that's going to be a big problem. It's like, well, you can just go offline, but it's like, well, I like some of the online stuff, like the messages, and I like to look at the blood stains. I like seeing the little spirits just running back and forth. Like, that's cool. Like, it gives it a new element.
Do you think they'll make it selectable, that you can actually determine?
Well, that's one of the big things, is that in this one, supposedly you can get invaded if you're hollow or not. So it's like, how do I prevent being invaded? Because I don't want to waste my time with invaders.
Yeah.
Like, it's not interesting at all. It's just tedious.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But it really sounds like they're trying to shove it down people's throats this time. But we'll see if they actually do it or not. Hopefully they don't. But I think that's all the games I'm thinking of that I'm anticipating for next year. But Watch Dogs is the big one.
Yeah. There's also like some other ones that probably I'm not super excited about, but like Drive Club might be good. I'm kind of interested to see what that'll be like. There's, gosh, I feel like there was another one. I'm kind of curious to see if they pull off MLB The Show. Like, it's the first version for the PS4.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they're gonna pull it off or not. Like, it's kind of like it's a tough thing to make the first version for a new console.
Yeah.
So hopefully that'll be good. And then there's, let's see, we already mentioned Titanfall and Destiny. Infamous Second Son looks like it might be good.
Yeah. That's all I can think of, I think.
Yeah. But I'm sure there's always...
Oh, yeah, there's more that we're forgetting, I'm sure. Yeah. But yeah, wow.
Cool.
What a year.
So, tell them where they can find you on the interwebs.
You can follow me on YouTube. It's youtube.com/Vertigo Tea Party. And you can also find me on Twitter. It's at MalachiVT, MalachiVT. You can also just search Vertigo Tea Party on Twitter. That will be where I am at.
And you can find me on Twitter as well at Capanius, CAPANE_US, and at my blog at CAPANE.us. And I'm probably going to be putting up a either top 5 or top 10 list in written form, either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I'm going to try to get that done. And so be sure to check on that. And then hopefully you'll be hearing from us in another week or so as we get back into the groove of things.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to spread the word. We're trying to really get this kicked off. So anybody you can
iTunes.
Yeah. Make sure to rate us. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to like it. Either way, make sure to share this with everybody, even your grandmother who doesn't care about games. I'm sure she'd love to hear us talk for 3 hours about video games.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
So tune her in, tune everybody in. Let them know.
All right. Have a happy New Year.
All right. Thank you guys for watching. Bye-bye. Yep.